All right, I think we're live. If anyone in chat can hear me, just push one. All right, got a confirmation from the chat. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 5 Economic Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. And discussion, make sure you click on the link in the chat. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Another Zoom update did go out before you join the panel. Just as an FYI, we don't give out financial advice here. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one of the opinions expressed are of the individual. It does not represent the channel as a whole. Let me give a shout out to the people who showed up first. Power, Hard Fork, Rich, salute. Willie Little John, peace. Hey, thanks for that article you sent, Willie Little John. Appreciate it. Mugen Black, peace to you. Salute, salute. David Moreau, good evening. EP1, peace to you as well. Istawa, blessings to you as well. All right, in the chat for those who do want to engage. All right, get started with the first item on the docket. All right, so first item on the docket is from Inc.com. The key to entrepreneurial success, simple. Do what you need to do. Whether you're starting a business, growing a business, or simply trying to make a business work, you do what you have to do to make it work. That's the advice. I'm not going to go into all of this. And these were the key elements for entrepreneurial success, at least as I was told by a few business students during a recent business visit I oversaw. Moreover, students reiterated the importance of vision and focus and learning when to say no to opportunities outside your scope. All of these insights were spot on, but also greatly oversimplified. For that reason, I had hoped to build on these ideas with the more realistic and gritty elements of entrepreneurship as we visited with Mark Bronner of Little Spider Creations, a unique company that creates and fabricates custom props and themes for amusement parks, haunted attractions, and just about any other event or local needing a 10-foot tall Sasquatch, if that's your thing. Bronner spoke with my group of university business students on our visit, during which we toured his facility and heard about Little Spider's unique and humble story. Bronner, a creative and artist by trade, founded the company 25 years ago in the busy suburbs of Denver, Colorado. Recently, however, he moved his business and family, many of whom actively work in the business, to the smaller, relatively sleepier town of Little River, South Carolina. Why would Bronner move from such a vibrant and growing city like Denver, a prime location for creative talent and regional distribution? As Bronner explained, you do what you have to do. And that, in a nutshell, was what I wanted and needed to the students to hear. He went on to explain that when marijuana was legalized in Colorado, the cost of renting industrial warehouse space in and around Denver skyrocketed, in some cases increasing 400%. My family and I grew up in Colorado, Bronner explained, and we love it here. Oh, sorry, we love it there, but we just couldn't make it work with the rising rents. He went on to emphasize that while you may have an emotional connection to a location, if the best decision for the business is to move it, then you need to do what you have to do. Bronner also told this story about an early business transaction made during a period when, like most bootstrapping family businesses, the company was struggling to make ends meet. One day, he recounts, a guy with two other brawny-looking guys walked to my office and asked if I could help him remodel his business. I said that we could, which is something you say when you are starting out, even if you don't know if you can. Later, Bronner discovered that the man in his office was the owner of a gentleman's club who was seeking to theme it out. We are a conservative, religious family, and I was really struggling with taking on a job for a nightclub like this. Bronner explained. My wife could see I was struggling, and she asked me if I had come to you and asked you to install a new carpet, would you do it? I replied that I would. So she smiled and said simply, then you should do this. Obviously, carpet was not Bronner's business, but it was. They were a struggling small business trying to find creative ways to generate income and keep the doors open. So when a business opportunity comes through your door, it is best to put your business plan in pride. We did what we had to do, concluded Bronner, who explained that he took the job and eventually did all the work during hours when the nightclub 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. to avoid any contact with the staff. As Bronner explained, in the end, whether you are starting a business, growing a business, or simply trying to make a business work. It may not always be what you want to do, and it may not fit into your business plan or even your ego. But if the end justifies the means, you need to grit it out and get the job done. I think that's kind of common sense. You do what you have to do. A lot of people don't really want to do that. They want to, and I'm speaking from an IT perspective. A lot of people don't want to do help desk. They don't want to do desktop support. They don't want to do remote work. They want to get into blockchain. They want to get into this. They want to get into that. You do what you have to do to make it work. That's the name of the game here. It's the name of the game here. You do what you have to do to make it work. You do what you need to do with what you have to do it with. Okay? So that's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. Pretty good story. Just wanted to make sure we read over. Not knocking anybody in particular, just making the point. This is the way of the business. This is the way of the business. Let me jump to the next item on the docket. I don't see anybody trying to come on, so I'll just fly right through these. This is from CNBC.com. Mark Cuban, if I had to start a side hustle now to make extra money, this is what I'd do. Billionaire investor Mark Cuban is bullish on the future of artificial intelligence and has been for years. Not only has he made it a priority to learn about it and invest in AI himself, but he has consistently recommended other entrepreneurs do this. BC's Shark Tank star had to start a side hustle business today. That's where Mark Cuban would turn. I would become an expert in scripting for Alexa and Google Home and Cortana. Excuse me for a second. Let me disable this real quick. Interesting. I will become an expert. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to. I don't want to say this again because as soon as I said Google going off, so go to any place that sold devices they supported and show them how much more they could do with a few hours. He tells CNBC make it. By scripting, Cuban is referring to the process of coding voice commands to create so-called skills, which enable devices like Amazon's Echo or Echo Dot, which use artificial intelligence-enabled voice assistants, Alexa, Google Home, or Microsoft Cortana to complete a task. For example, enabling the iRobot Home skill allows you to simply say, Alexa, ask Roomba to start cleaning, to get your smart vacuum going. Or you can enable a skill like CNBC's flash briefing to hear the day's headlines. Alexa skills and scripting Alexa skills is really, really easy, but everybody thinks it's really, really hard. And so that disconnect is a great opportunity. Cuban previously told Recode's Peter Kafka's in 2019. I told my kids and other kids, learn how to script and just go get your neighbors and set up all of these Alexa tools, and you'll make $25 $30 to $40 an hour. Amazon provides free resources to teach anyone how to create skills for its platform. Amazon has a Alexa skills kit of tutorials online, for example. We think it should be simple for people of all skill levels to build for Alexa. Rob Policiani, the vice president of Amazon Alexa International, previously told CNBC make it. Amazon currently has over 40,000 skills for Alexa built by third-party developers. When speaking at the 2020 CES conference in January, Cuban also spoke about the potentially lucrative side hustle. If I was 16 years old, I would learn Google Home, Amazon Alexa, Microsoft stuff, and learn how to create scripts, he said. Then go to my neighbor's home and charge $30 an hour to set it up in their house. At the conference, he also compared the future of AI to the rise of the internet. If you don't know AI, you're the equivalent of somebody in 1999 saying, I'm sure this internet thing will be okay, but I don't give a shit. He said at the conference. If you want to be relevant in business, you have to, or you will be a dinosaur very quickly. In fact, Cuban has predicted that the world's first trillionaire will be an AI entrepreneur. I am telling you, he said at the South by Southwest conference and festivals in 2017, the world's first trillionaires are going to come from somebody who masters AI and all its derivatives and applies it in a way we never thought of. He's very right. He's right. He's bang on the money. He's bang on the money. bang on the money. He's talking about leveraging the existing devices and infrastructure and just driving instructions behind it. He's actually right about that. He's actually right about that. I don't have any disagreement about that. I think he's bang on the money with it at this point. He's right. You know, if you don't know what AI is or machine learning, or deep learning in 2020, not saying how to code it, but not knowing what it is, the literacy factor, you are screwed. You are illiterate by modern standards. After 2020, if you don't know what AI, ML, and DL is, and RL is, you are screwed. You're like a person who's dyslexic. In fact, that is a form of dyslexia. You wouldn't understand, the technologies, and not knowing it is part of the problem, and that affects Black people the most because they just don't have any conception of what its capabilities are, or what it even is to begin with. Okay. All right. Let me jump to the next item on the docket. Mark Cuban, again, bang on the money. That's coming from a billionaire who reads dummies books. Okay. He buys dummy books off of Amazon and then he reads them in his hot tub learning how to code. Meanwhile, you got people sitting on live streams talking about nothing and not studying, and then complaining that they can't find a job. You wonder why. All right, next item on the docket is from the BBC. Coronavirus armed protests entered Michigan State House. I'm just going to breeze through this real quick. Footage of protesters outside the building showed them chanting, "Let us in, let us work." And this is the people's house. You cannot lock us out. The virus is here. One demonstrator, Johnny George, told the Associated Press, "It's going to be here. It's time to let people go back to work. That's all there is to do." That's all there is to it. The rally is believed to have been the largest of its type since one on the 15th of April, when Michigan protesters sat in their cars in order to create traffic around the State House. President Donald Trump threw his support behind demonstrators at the time, tweeting, "Liberate Michigan." Some critics said his tweets were an attempt to foment insurrection. Okay. On Thursday, the Republican-controlled legislature refused Governor Whitmer's request to extend her emergency orders. They also cleared the way for her to be sued over her handling of the pandemic. She hit back that she does not need legislative authorization for the extension. On Wednesday, the governor accused Republicans of treating the virus like a political problem rather than a public health crisis. Many U.S. states, including Georgia, Oklahoma, and South Carolina, have taken steps to loosen virus mitigation restrictions. On Wednesday, a Michigan court ruled that the governor's lockdown orders were not unconstitutional, as 5 state residents had claimed in a lawsuit against the governor. Although the court is painfully aware of the difficulties of living under the restrictions of these executive orders, those difficulties are temporary, while to those who contract the virus and cannot recover, it is all too permanent. Michigan Court of Claims Judge Christopher M. Murray wrote in a ruling. So it was only a matter of time before you saw this take place. Okay. This is what's going down. You know, I've seen videos of black people out there twerking with masks on. This is how white people respond. I don't know. You tell me. All right. We jump to the next item on the docket. All right. This is from the New York Times.com. The death of the department store, very few are likely to survive. Shuttered flagships, empty malls, canceled orders, risk of bankruptcy. The coronavirus has hit the behemoths of the retail world. American department stores, once all powerful shopping meccas that anchored malls and main streets across the country, have been dealt blow after blow in the past decade. J.C. Penney and Sears were appended by hedge funds. Macy's has been closing stores and cutting corporate staff. Barney's New York filed for bankruptcy last year. But nothing compares to the shock the weakened industry has taken from the coronavirus pandemic. The sales of clothing and accessories fell by more than half in March, a trend that is expected to only get worse in April. The entire executive team at Lord & Taylor was let go this month. Nordstrom has canceled orders and put off paying its vendors. The Neiman Marcus Group, the most glittering of the American department store chains, is expected to declare bankruptcy in the coming days. The first major retailer fell during the current crisis. It is not likely to be the last. The department stores, which have been failing slowly for a very long time, really don't get over this, said Mark A. Cohen, the director of retail studies at Columbia University's Business School. The genre is toast. And looking at the other side of this, there are very few who are likely to survive. At a time when retailers should be putting in orders for the all-important holiday shopping season, stores are furloughing tens of thousands of corporate and store employees, hoarding cash and desperately planning how to survive the crisis. The specter of mass default is being discussed, not just behind closed doors, but in analysts' future models. Whether or not that happens, no one doubts that the upheaval caused by the pandemic will permanently alter both the retail landscape and the relationships of brands with the stores that sell them. At the very least, there is expected to be an enormous reduction in the number of stores in each chain, which once sprawled across the American continent like a pack of many headed hydras. Department store chains account for about 30% of the total mall square footage in the United States, with 10% of that coming from Sears and J.C. Penney, according to a January report from Green Street Advisors, a real estate research firm. Even before the pandemic, the firm expected about half of mall-based department stores to close in the next 5 years. Even as they have worked to transform themselves for e-commerce with apps, websites, and in-store exchanges, the outbreak has laid bare how dependent the department stores have remained on their physical outposts. Macy's said on March 30th that after closing its stores for nearly 2 weeks, it had lost the majority of its sales. The Commerce Department's retail sales report for March, released last week, was disastrous. Overall retail sales numbers for this month are expected to be even worse, given that some stores were open for at least part of March. Retailers have begun taking extreme measures to try to survive. Le Tote, a subscription clothing company that acquired Lord & Taylor last year from Hudson's Bay, said in a memo on April 2nd that the chain's entire executive team, including the chief executive, would be let go immediately. It also suspended payments of goods to vendors for at least 90 days, citing immense pressure on our liquidity position. Macy's, which also owns Bloomingdale's, extended payment for goods and services to 120 days from 60 days and, according to Reuters, has hired bankers from Lazard to explore new financing. Jeff Jennett, the chief executive, is foregoing any compensation for the duration of the crisis. The company was dropped from the S&P 500 last month based on its valuation. JCPenney has hired Lazard, the law firm Kirkland and Ellis, and the consultancy Alix Partners to explore restructuring options, according to two people familiar with the matter, and confirmed that it skipped an interest payment on its debt last week. It is expected to make the decision on what to do, including potentially filing for bankruptcy within a few weeks, one of the people said. But none of them were in an immediate dire straits, as Neiman Marcus, which has both an enormous debt burden, about $4.8 billion, thanks in part to a leveraged buyout in 2013 by the owners, Ares Management, and the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, and a raft of expensive rents in the most high-profile shopping destinations signed during boom times. In late March, Neiman stopped accepting new merchandise and furloughed a large portion of its approximately 14,000 employees as the rumors of bankruptcy began to swirl. Its chief executive, Jeffrey Van Romanek, announced that he was waiving his salary for April. The brand denied to vendors and its own employees at its sister brand, Bergdorf Goodman, that it was engaging advisors to explore a bankruptcy filing bill. But on April 14th, S&P downgraded Neiman's credit rating. Last week, the retailer did not make an interest payment that was due on April 15th, angering bondholders and further fueling suspicions that a bankruptcy filing was imminent. I don't know, man. You got complex design on the panel. What's going on? All right, complex is having issues. So this was bound to happen. There's no way that you can compete with online, holding all these brick and mortars open. There's just no way. And the pandemic has completely shut all of this down. What the pandemic has done is it accelerated the necessity behind the closure of these stores. See, most of these stores weren't supposed to close until after Q3, Q4, okay? Q4 at best, because Christmas season, Black Friday, those were supposed to be their money stops, and Labor Day. Those 3 holidays are supposed to be their cash grabs, but the pandemic has completely taken the life right out of them. If anybody needs a ventilator, it's the retail. They're in deep doo-doo at this point. I don't think any retail is going to be able to survive unless you move in perishable goods. Even the perishable goods places, the grocery stores and stuff like that, they're hurting. Complex design, can we hear you? Or can you hear us? Let's go to Renaissance Man.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Not much, bro. What's going on?
Nothing much.
What's your idea on retail biting the bullet for the final time?
It'll be interesting. I was reading the other day an article about Haverty's, um, and they were talking about, they're kind of banking on the fact that something like furniture, people want to come in their store and look at and buy. So they've received some positive feedback there, even though they've laid off a lot of people still. For traditional retail, it'll be interesting as well there too. I'm wondering if with everyone being forced to social distance and stay at home, if there'll be some sort of, I guess, new appreciation for more of the social aspect of being able to go out and interact with someone while shopping, talk to someone. But no, you are right with regard. So I wonder if that obviously will help save some of these, but a lot of them, you are right, are not going to come back. I was looking at something online the other day, and you can basically now put in your measurements um, into like a sizing chart, and it can tell you essentially what size you need. So that's sort of taken away that element of unknown when you go shopping, at least for clothing retail.
Is that an app or?
No, this was on their website. I can't remember who I was looking at, but literally, like, you entered your height, your weight. Um, I think that was really it. And I don't know if it was actually like an algorithm or if it was just saying like, hey, people who enter these measurements generally pick this size, or if there's actually like some science behind, hey, this should theoretically be your size. But it was the first time I had seen something like that.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to see a lot more of that come in, these little special features to kind of speed up the process, because they don't want people keep returning items and stuff like that. Stuff starts to cost money after a while.
So same thing with sunglasses too. I was looking at a pair of sunglasses. You can now basically use your webcam. It'll take a picture of your face, and then they'll load the sunglasses on your face. So you at least have an idea of what they look like on you.
Yeah, yeah. Whoever comes up with an idea for putting malls inside VR headsets, hint, hint, hard fork rich. Whoever comes up with that idea of putting malls in VR headsets and having that sort of, three-dimensional spatial view of a mall and being able to walk into places that they typically can't walk into during the pandemic, man, make a killing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing is too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's the type of innovation that drives new markets. Go ahead, though.
No, I was going to say too. And the other thing, I don't know if I guess I don't know. I guess the stores are probably looking at just from a purely profit standpoint. But I know the big thing with malls for a while had been like they had at least the ones I had seen, the newer malls, they had shifted from your traditional mall where you had one big building and stores inside to like basically individual shops. Basically because they didn't like people hanging around and all of that in the mall. So that could
Yeah.
be another incentive there where they're like, hey, that's another plus of us not moving the stuff online outside of not maintaining brick and mortar.
Yeah. What about your micro businesses inside those malls, those push carts and stuff like that? Those are your
Yeah.
micro economies, right? You're selling trinkets and stuff like that. Those people are very hard hit. Um, I don't know. I mean, most places in most urban areas, you need like a panhandler's permit to actually use, sell things like that on the street. Push your cart around, stuff like that. But that being said, the stuff hits. The stuff goes downhill. So yeah, your Sears and J.C. Penney get hit hard, but those people inside that mall that push those carts around, sell those cell phone cases and stuff like that, they're wiped out of the game. They're forgotten.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I mean, honestly, I forgot all about them until you mentioned it. And then on top of that, you're at least in a rate location where people are in a position to go shop. If you start going like anywhere, try to set up, that just lowers actually the. I'm sure your foot traffic of people who actually are coming here to actually buy something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're getting hit bad.
Yeah, brother man who sells the incense and the oils and stuff like that, he's out of the game. Can't open up.
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen?
Nothing
What's up,
much do.
Complex?
What up?
Oh,
So
chilling, man. I just got in. I'm just clocking out, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and just follow along with the article, and I'll just jump in.
yeah, yeah, and unfortunately, man, those malls have to be repurposed for something. They were purposely built for stores and retail stores, but now that retail is falling apart, what do you do with them? The only thing I can imagine is that they would have to be repurposed for condos and stuff. Condos and
Yeah, the
offices.
one. Yeah, the one back home that I grew up going to that closed, they ended up turning it into a school part of it, and then another portion of it became like the police and fire headquarters. That's what they
Wow.
did with theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was gonna say, I think the move on that is it's too difficult to really think about what to use that size of real estate for, right? For as far as single purpose or like a, like one single company, unless we're doing a multitude of things in it.
Mhm.
I would like to see things like malls be converted into, Mike, like we work type of arrangements.
Yeah,
You know,
but in a social distancing climate, that'd be hard to sell.
well, in a social distancing climate, it's pretty much going to be hard to sell anything to use that thing for, outside of maybe converting the space into manufacturing. Like when you
Well,
look at
you
the
still have
square.
you still have social distancing issues, right? To sell it for manufacturing would mean that you would have to rip the whole entire guts of the mall out in order to uh, supply it with the necessary tooling and whatnot. Who's bringing back their manufacturing for that? No one's going to really
No,
bring back their
no one's gonna.
manufacturing for that.
No,
Uh,
no one's gonna bring it back. I'm saying, like, let's really think about it, because the one question you asked, and it's very pertinent, the social distancing aspect of it, right? How do you occupy a space like that with something that would actually make it useful without putting people in it because of social distancing? The only thing that I could think of is fill it up full of robots to make the stuff. If we can't put people in it to be productive, to actually produce something in it, whether it's physical goods, intellectual property, services, or something like that, if we can't use people, then yeah, that becomes the question, right? What do you do?
because it has to be profitable. The landlord wants to see profit turn every single time. Um, And so carving up a mall and turning it into condos and stuff like that is probably the only way that they're going to turn profit immediately. Um,
They're gonna have to, yeah.
especially,
I mean, because I,
especially,
I would even say that hmm?
no, I said, especially in a time when um, landlords want, landlords are waiting for, putting liens on retail because they haven't paid their rent or they're probably not going to pay their rent. They want immediate returns on investment. You can actually convert a mall really quickly into an array of condos and whatnot, daycare centers and stuff like that. That stuff takes maybe 30 to 45 days at best of day in day out 7-day construction. To turn it into a manufacturing hub, um, you would have to find the legitimate business need behind it. What exactly are you manufacturing, and who's going to be the company to do it?
Yeah, well, what I would do, and because I mean, I'm looking at the real estate market, right?
Mhm.
And so if we're talking about, a real estate, see, because I don't think anyone is absolved from this. Yeah, I think that landlords are pretty much just as eager to get their rents as much as people are eager to go to work and make some money so that they can pay for things, right? Because landlords ultimately have to do what? Get paid so that they can pay for their things, right? See, so it's all in line. And see, sometimes landlords are just left holding the bag, in this type of environment. I'm sorry, but a mall in 2020 at this particular stage of the game, yeah, you may have just gotten caught out there on a bad investment given the environment, right? So I'm not saying that converting it to living spaces wouldn't work. I know in some of the places where I live, like when I lived in LA, some of the places actually have those sort of like, there's retail space on the bottom, and then there's real estate space on the top, right? So there's like condos or condominiums, apartments and stuff that are on the top part of the building. Let's say it's like 3 or 4 levels up, but the bottom level is a bunch of shops and stores and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if they did like a mixed, sort of like a mixed type of thing, maybe we're talking, you know, yeah. But even in this type of environment, again, what about people moving into a place like this? Do they have the money to move? Do they have the means? Are they moving there because of work opportunities? You know,
It subsidizes things like that.
you said it subsidized it. Like, were you talking about what, like public housing?
Yeah, state subsidize things like that. So
Oh, okay.
they would have to,
Okay.
give out vouchers to get people into there.
Vouchers.
Yeah, they would have
Right.
to subsidize it by
Okay.
putting vouchers to get
I
in
can
there.
see it that way. I can see it that way, right? Because then, let's say the states take an interest in trying to avoid blight, right? Like these big ass buildings that just sit, and then they basically derode, you know. So the state says, okay, well, look, we have a homeless issue, and then we have these buildings here that are just sitting here, right?
Mhm.
So why don't we create like a voucher program and incentivize property developers and landowners to take, you know, things like malls and stuff and convert them into living spaces, provide people with vouchers. It's a win-win then. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
because
that
the state has the money. They have to spend it. If they don't
Yeah,
spend it,
yeah, I can see that.
they get it again. They don't get it next fiscal. So
Mhm.
things have to be spent. Plus, you already have a housing issue, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people waiting on the waiting list to get into some of these apartments and whatnot, because it's not enough available. A mall can hold anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 people if it's structured out correctly.
Right. Now, let me just real quickly just kind of like tell you, because this was the mall model with regards to manufacturing was actually something that came up in a kind of like a 3D printing manufacturing think tank meeting that I was in like a few years ago. So somebody actually presented the idea of malls, right? Using malls as converted manufacturing and development spaces. And what it would be is, it would be like, so you'd have like a conglomerate of businesses that would basically secure one location. The main floor space in there would be utilized for automated building and stuff like that. And then you have a multitude of companies within this space that are piped into the same network that can use the same machines on a production schedule to print out and manufacture components and things like that, right? And a lot of these companies, what they would do, they would just solicit contracts from larger manufacturers. So they would get the contract from the manufacturers to develop the pieces in this one place where there's a bunch of companies doing the same thing and using the machines to do it. So it's kind of like shared working space, right? But in this case, it would just be manufactured. So that was like another model that was thrown out. But I mean, I get what you're saying though.
No, it would have made sense back in 2007, 2006, but now with China's ability and even forget about China, just Mexico. You're talking about $4.
Mexico, right?
Yeah, $4 on labor versus the $25, $35 of labor here. It's not there yet. The idea of having a full robotic facility isn't out of a mall, has not really come to fruition yet because the cost isn't there. The cost savings.
Not only is the cost not there, but we're not the reality of it, Mike. And again, that idea was just that, dude. It was an idea in a think tank where we're a bunch of dudes talking about self-driving cars and shit, right? So our imaginations are going to run wild, but the reality is that, dude, infrastructurally, bro, we're just not set up. We're not there, right? To really, we're not on pace with the Chinese like that. Even when it comes to this automation and the robotics and all this, they're trying to they're trying to steamroll a lot of legislation and a lot of things behind the scenes to get up to speed, but we just simply aren't there at this moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna add too on the mall piece. I was gonna say it depends on location, like what state you're in. Like, I mean, this has always been a big problem with malls and big box retailers who would come and build these massive facilities and then close up shop and literally, like you said, blight. I mean, I know places where a Kmart or a Walmart were there and that building's still sitting there 20, 30 years from now. Now, granted, if you're in somewhere like one of the bigger cities, you know, you're seeing a lot of gentrification, things like that, where, you know, these buildings probably will be bought by some investor and rehabilitated, or like you all said, look to create some sort of program. Like I know in Atlanta, for example, one of the malls, I think it was maybe West End Mall, or it was one of the big inner city malls. Basically, an investor bought it and was basically going to revitalize it, and like you said, sort of go for that mixed use type of look. So just depends on your location too.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody in the chat said, what about what about turning it into an Amazon warehouse? Amazon warehouses are usually purpose built, you know, because they have
Aren't
all
they
the
also
robots.
kind of, yeah, I was gonna say, aren't they also sort of like logistically, they kind of, yeah.
Yeah, they're always located close to something. So,
Yeah, transportation, railroad, airport. That was one of the big things in there when they were
Yeah,
looking
they're
to build
always kind of
HQ2.
placed, yeah, they're always kind of placed in strategic cities.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And plus, you don't want it. Amazon has to be approved to be in the area. You can't just, throw it up and say, well, Amazon should just use this. Like, most cities don't want Amazon in
You,
their
you want your
cities.
goddamn tax, you want your tax base sucked from under you, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, next item on the docket is from MarketWatch.com. Don't be fooled. A 40% drop could hit by next year after this bear market rally fades, veteran economist warns. That's A. Gary Schilling, longtime economist and president of A. Gary Schilling and Co., delivering his gloomy take in a recent op-ed published on Bloomberg News. This looks like a bear market rally similar to that in 1929, 1930, he said, with an additional 30 to 40% drop in stocks to come as the deep global recession stretches into 2021. As you can see from this tweet, Schilling has been sounding this alarm for a while now. In his Bloomberg piece, Schilling pointed to the 48% plunge in the Dow Jones Industrial Average from September 3rd to November 13th back in 1929, a pullback which may have seemed like a reasonable correction at that time, since the blue chips had rallied 500% in the 8 years leading up to it. So buyers stepped in and pushed stocks up 48% through April 17th, 1930, a 52% retracement. The bull times, he wrote, didn't last long as the Dow ultimately shed 89% from its September 1929 top. Schilling is concerned we could see something similar unfold in the current market. He explained that while many economists are looking for a V-shaped rebound to deliver a sharp recovery in the second half of the year, he remains much more skeptical regardless of how much stimulus the government pumps into the economy. Bear markets that accompany recession last about 11 months, far longer than the recent slump, Schilling wrote. The gigantic monthly and fiscal stimulus employed so far, with more to come, are unlikely to offset the massive disruption of the coronavirus pandemic. He adds that by the time the total decline in wealth, he believes it will have a major impact on consumer spending at home and abroad as a painful recession takes firm hold. This pandemic is likely to be the most disruptive financial and social event since World War II, with equally long-lasting consequences, Schilling wrote, citing stark unemployment numbers. Many will no doubt restrain spending in future years to rebuild savings, especially since this crisis caught them at a time of high debts and short financial reserves. Stocks were giving back some recent gains in Thursday's trading session with the Dow at negative 2.55%. I don't know. This guy's putting all the numbers out there. 40% drop. Oh, let me let Carl in.
40% drop in terms of
there's a bear run coming, or it's already hit.
right.
So he's saying the bear run is going to go between now and next year. Okay.
It'll be interesting because the Dow basically was up around almost near 30,000 before this thing started. I believe it fell to around maybe 18, 19. I know yesterday it closed around 24, and today it closed a little bit under 24. So it'll be interesting because it kind of bounced back off of stimulus hopes and basically a coronavirus drug. And at some point, if you're the market, you got to start looking at the earnings of these companies. And so many companies are just suspending their guidance that they gave for the beginning of this year because of this COVID-19. So if you ever get back to where people really start looking at fundamentals of technicals of companies, it's just a matter of how far how long this recession lasts. So it's not too far out of line what he's saying.
Yeah, he's also saying that bear markets that company recessions last about 11 months. Now, we talked about this about a week and a half ago that Fed chairman of New York said this could go on until Q4 2020. So you're talking anywhere between November and December.
That's about 11 months.
Yeah. Fed chairman of Minneapolis said this can go on up until 2022. Okay, January 2022.
Yep.
I mean, how much more evidence do we really need to show that this is not going to end very well?
It's like I said, company earnings and what these companies going to do. The other thing is you've got not only the virus, but you've also got people who've got liquidity issues and access to capital. Like Boeing, I believe, issued it's $25 billion in bonds. So they've obviously still got access to capital markets, but that's the thing is issuing that much debt. Can you basically turn your company around and A, pay it back, and then B, if other companies get in trouble, how much of the market can absorb people drawing down that type of credit?
Right. People are going to be tapped out by Mother's Day. They're going to be tapped out. I mean, get mama a gift? I don't think so. You should be waiting for a while. You better send her an emoji with a rose or something.
It's fucked up, man.
I'm telling you, if people are supposed to have at least 6 months of savings in their savings account, and you're talking about Black people who don't even have $400 in their savings, these people are tapped out already, if they're not already tapped out by Mother's Day.
No, I mean, no, it's man, I won't put too many details out there, but one of my partners, so today's May 1st, right? So rent's due.
Yep.
Right. So he's literally only technically been out of work for maybe 7 weeks, right? We have to count like half of March and then all of April. May's here, it just started, but he's already 45K on the hole in rent when you think about March, April, May, right? So we had things that were impacting business before they called for a national shutdown, which was already impacting his ability to make money to pay the rent for March. Then all of April, well, you obviously can't do anything. And then we're in May, so look how quick it builds up. That's why when you said, well, yeah, when did you say by Mother's Day?
Yeah, Mother's Day. People will be tapped, at least I'm specifically speaking for Black people, they'll be tapped out by Mother's Day.
Yeah, well, I'm speaking about a buddy of mine who has a goddamn business down in Venice. You know, and I'm just saying, like, shit. Look at how he's tapped already, dude. He's 45K in the hall rent and ain't made a cent since shit February.
Man, yeah, you talking that? I mean, Mike's talking about black folks. As far as black folks are concerned, Mike is dead right about that, as we know.
Yeah.
But folks in general are just totally torn out the frame. So 6 months.
Yeah.
White companies. I mean, here I am. I got 24-hour fitness just around the corner from my house, and I was thinking, I said, when this thing ends up, kind of closes down, I may go over to 24-hour. It's a little close. I can just jog over there as well. 24-hour fitness, we bankrupt. 24-hour fitness, we bankrupt. We getting ready to shut down. So you've got all of these, non-essential businesses, as people would like to say, who really can't even survive for 2 to 3 months without anybody coming in. 6 months? I mean, maybe 11, if you are.
This article is saying 11 months, 40% drop.
11 months, man. I know a lot of people who are done, who will be finished before that time. So, personally, the average American, it's about the American now. We're not talking about, just black people, average American. And you have to look at, many whites who are out there in rural America and so forth. And they don't have $400. They don't even have $400, man. $400 or $500. They don't have that. They hand them out. Black people, forget about it, man. We are, you got 1 month. People talking about that $1,200 check ain't gonna do anything. I said, well, for some people, that $1,200 is gonna be a whole lot better than nothing. So,
eating today or not eating at all.
I said, for a lot of people were complaining, but I said, that $1,200 is going to keep a lot of people going, whether y'all like to hear that or not. A lot of people ain't seen $1,200 in a minute, where they've had $1,200 just come in like that. Most of the money they get, whatever weekly check they get, small, and that's gone, and if they don't get a check the next week or next 2 weeks or whatever, they're things are rough. I mean, I don't want to get into personal stuff, but one of my security spots I had, which looks like we're going to be opening up again shortly. One of the store managers came to me and asked me for a loan. She was like, I can't make it till the end of the month. My bills ain't paid. This was back in February. My bills ain't paid. I think she may have thought, she wanted Dominican chicks walk around big booty and all that. I was thinking, maybe she could tap me up with some dough and play me in some other ways. I was like, it's going to be about 5% on your money, girl. If I let it to you, I got to at least get 5% back on top of what I let you. So, so get that out of here. So at the end of yeah, or I'm out though. Forget about it. Whatever booty you got, you keep that for Jose down the block. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? At the end of but I won't. What I'm saying is, here people are working, and they don't have enough money to cover their bills, and they're working regularly, and they're gonna come to a quasi shark like myself to come to grab some. To get a loan to carry them over to the next payday. So I'm sitting there saying, look at this. So this is going on without this thing going on. God forbid if people are knocked out of the box. In our community, Black community, and many aspects of the Latino community and others, and Native American community and whatever, forget about it, man. Forget about it. You're talking about people can't make it a month. You're gone. You're finished. So this is what's going on right now is it's pretty serious, and if this game continues at this, I don't know where we're going to be at. But I did see very interesting. I saw a guy on a video that one of my friends sent me. It was pretty funny. This white guy was complaining about the mortgages. They're telling you if you get 3 months off for your mortgage, by the end of your third month that they've given you, you got to pay all the money up front. He goes, why don't you just take that mortgage money and tap it onto the end of the loan that you have? So let's if your loan was now out for say 20 months, now it's 23 months. And and if it was 10 months you had left on your loan, now you got 13 months or whatever. This is how these guys should be working at, instead of instead of just just saying, come up with a balloon payment after 90 days and, come up with whatever it is. For some people, if they're $3,000 a month, or let's say they're $2,000 a month, they got to come up with $6,000 or $9,000 or whatever. They ain't gonna have that. So we're gonna see some housing issues, and they don't have to play the game that way. So this is what people are talking about outside of our community who are trying to survive this. So who's trying to survive this and keep their homes and stuff. So are you kidding me? As far as what we're going to be looking at for our community, this is tough. This is tough, and everybody's feeling this. And if everybody's hurting, we're dying from it. So yeah, this is quite serious business, and also the scam game that the banks are playing with this whole thing now, and getting money for small businesses and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the scam game. And I think we talked about that. Complex. The scam that the banks are getting this money in, they're holding it, not giving it to you. All right, keeping it for themselves. Got the big boys who got all the dough, and they're collecting the small money that they should be giving to the small guy and not giving it to him. And they're keeping it. I mean, this shit is ill.
Carl,
what's going on right now? Ill.
Carl, Nagone, did you hear?
Go
Did
ahead.
you hear? There was so one of the schemes. So like what Bank of America was doing was saying that what they're doing is that they're prioritizing the people who already have a business loan. Now, a little bit how banks and accounts and money works.
Yeah.
So follow me here, and then you go ahead and put in on this. So if I'm the bank and I get this money from the Fed, and then the Fed says, give this out to small business loaners who need it because of this pandemic shit. And then I say, oh, okay, sure. And then guess what I do as a bank? I turn around and I say, hey, if you have a business loan already out, if you have lines of credit out with us, then step to the front of the line. You go ahead and apply for this. Now, why would a bank do that?
Trying to make sure you. No, I was going to say
bank,
trying to make sure that company survives so they can get their money back.
Well, not that, but they also know a lot of.
You got it.
They also know a lot. They also know a lot of these companies that are coming up have not gotten loans from them. So they'll say, "Well, step up. You'll be good. So the few that'll come in will be all right. The rest of the money, they're going to refuse you, and they're going to keep it. They're going to keep that bread, man. They're going to keep that fucking money." Dude.
That's exactly what they're doing. Think about it. The money goes to them, and then if you have an account, where does it actually go, Nagone?
Who you talking about? Where does the money go from when the bank?
Yeah, like if the bank says, yeah, okay, so yeah, if you have lines of credit with us or business loans or anything like that with us, yeah, go ahead and fill out your applications. They have the money, but does the money actually ever leave the bank?
Money doesn't leave the bank now.
It never leaves.
Money doesn't leave the bank now. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So that's one of those little loophole ways where the banks took the money from the Fed, from the stimulus plan, and came up with a scheme to keep it. They said, "Oh yeah, well we're handing it out to the small businesses, yeah." And then there's a little asterisk, right? The ones who have like lines of credit or loans with us already.
Who have small business loans? When a lot of these companies do not have.
Exactly.
Now these companies come for emergency loans. And these guys could probably qualify on paper to get a loan, but these banks are saying, we ain't doing that. We ain't trying to qualify.
It's the reason why Louis Rossman posted a video this morning forfeiting his goddamn keys.
I mean,
unbelievable.
This what's going on right now, and I talked to Complex about this morning. What's going on right now is criminal. I mean, this is a racket. This is like the mob. This is like the Genovese crime family or whatever, out here, Gambinos or whatever, grabbing money from the bank and telling everybody else screw you, and then going with other people and banging them out, man, at high interest rates. This shit is
sickening,
ill,
bro.
It's sickening, me and a couple of guys, we were talking about putting some money together and going out and loaning to small business ourselves, and I'm nervous because I would figure the banking institutions and so forth will probably try to come after us as loan sharks and say, you guys are sharking up in here. We'll put your ass in jail, because I think that they wouldn't want smaller business guys to put together not a lot of money, maybe $200-300 grand, and you're going to lend to a few businesses, 50 here, 50 there, 50 there. You're not doing a lot, but these businesses are going to, as soon as they open up, they're going to make money. So you're going to make a lot of money on that. they saw that we were doing that, we might run into a problem on this. And this is something I'm thinking about, because I'm saying it's another angle to make some money here during this time. So there's opportunities, but they might look at us like we're sharks. You know, you guys are sharking. Look what you guys are doing. Now, look,
if
you know,
you're a
boom,
shark,
and
they're a megalodon. If
they're
you're a
megalodons.
shark, they're a megalodon.
Oh, they're megalodons, man. They're megalodons rolling around. I mean, they're megalodons swimming around. You know, back from the dinosaur age. You know, these guys are still dipping around. I mean, for real. I mean, this is ill. I mean, it really is, and and these guys got it's a nice racket for them. This shit is ill, man. I think this shit is ill. It's ill that it's going down like this. And all these companies, man, are taking it on the chin right now. I mean, and it's, and it's medium sized,
man. Lewis handed in his keys, bro. I've been tight about this shit all day.
Hey, Complex, for context, who is that?
So Louis Rossman, he's a computer repair guy. He runs a channel on YouTube, and so he had a tech shop down in Brooklyn, and so he's got like over 1 million followers, because he'll record his repairs. Like, he does all of these like very detailed, intricate repairs. And the thing about him is that he's not an authorized Apple repair guy, and so but he often does the repairs way better than like most other shops do them. And then people will get their stuff repaired at other shops and then bring it to him when they're still not working right, and then he fixes their mistakes, and then he puts it on video, and he'll put up the schematics of the boards and tell you what's what. And I mean, the dude and he's also a right to repair advocate, right? See, so he's the type of person who gets called in as a witness or as someone to testimony in hearings when they're trying to pass legislation that says, hey, look, computer repair shops, if they have the right certifications and licensing, should be able to service a person's device if they rightfully own it, right? It's that whole ownership thing, right? You buy a device, but then the company says, well, now you don't actually own that part of it. That kind of shit. So he's been a dude who's on the front lines also with regards to that. He's just a real top-notch dude, and he was the one who was covering a lot of this stuff in detail. Like, especially when this stuff really popped off, I started sending his vids to Nagone and Mike and saying, hey man, look, let's take some points and let's make sure we touch on this, on our live streams, because he's the dude who was combing through the fine details of all of the the bill, and then combing through the policies that the banks were putting up, and he was the one that was documenting it and putting all out there. So case in point, the Bank of America scenario that Nagone and I were talking about, he was the one who illustrated it, because he went through all of the major banks and went to their application page for the stimulus loan. And when you read what they all have, like, dude, they basically weren't handing anything out. They put all these stipulations on how to get access to it. So they were supposed to actually accommodate applications the day after the bill was signed in. And then when you go to their page, we go to the website, they have a page up. And then some of them were like, oh yeah, we're not taking applications at this moment, or fill out this inquiry form and we'll have one of our agents get back with you and we'll do an intake process. It was all this red tape and all this bullshit. And Bank of America just decided to say, hey, look, go ahead.
No, you hit it right. I didn't finish up. I didn't think these guys would actually start stealing the money. I didn't think the banks were going to do this. I really didn't think so.
Oh yeah, I mean, you saw Trump basically try to say that he wanted to basically push to say, hey, I want to give the money away, and basically y'all don't need any accountability. So
yeah,
he was setting the tone right there for what was about to go down.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then Dylan, I think Nagone, did I send you the one this morning about the housing?
Are you talking about with Dylan Radigan?
Yeah. Yeah. See, so it's across the board.
Okay, all right, this next one is from entrepreneur.com. Minority-owned small businesses aren't getting stimulus loans. Could that finally change? So far, in the scramble to disperse SBA relief loans, big banks have passed over the most vulnerable businesses in favor of bigger, small businesses, but Congress's latest stimulus package gives $60 billion in PPP to key community lenders. For 4 months in 2018, Danielle Edwards drove past the brownstone on the corner of 6th Avenue and St. Mark's in Brooklyn. There was a for rent sign in the window of the for rent sign in the window of the second floor storefront, which caught her eye because the whole facade is enclosed by vintage curved glass. I call it the fishbowl, as she says. I fell in love with it when I first saw it, but I thought I'm not going to be able to afford that. Edwards was looking for a new location for her boutique gym, the New Body Project, which claims the distinction of being the only all-women's boot camp in Brooklyn. Edwards, 35, started the New Body Project in 2017 after the local women's gym she worked for shuttered suddenly. For the members, many of them women of color, the gym had been a kind of neighborhood home, and its closure was devastating. Literally, a lot of women had breakdowns, Edward calls. I just felt like a ton of bricks was falling on me. So I said, I've got to do something. She decided to start her own gym and went to a number of banks to try to get a loan. It did not go well. Even though my credit was good, she says, if you haven't been open for a year, no one wants to look at you, let alone looking at you if you're a Black and you're a woman.
Man, this is not a problem, people.
So she launched a Kickstarter campaign, and her community rallied to raise $3,000. Still, the location they landed in wasn't ideal. So one day after driving past the fishbowl, she finally called just to see. His original asking price was astronomical, but my community came together, she says. We wrote a letter to the landlord and expressed to him how we're going to build this community, and he dropped the price significantly. Even so, it was a stretch. To lock down the space, Edwards had to sell her house that she had bought in her 20s when she worked at a bank on Wall Street before getting laid off in the market crash. I went to the SBA, I was denied. I went to TD Bank, I was denied. I went to Capital One, I was denied, she says. So I was like, you know what? I have this place in Jersey. I hardly ever go back. I'll sell that and use the money to secure a new location. She did, and for a year, it was wonderful. The New Body Project grew from 12 to 62 dedicated members, and Edwards hired 4 trainers. Her clients were not the Lululemon Y ladies at boutique studios up the block. They were all shapes and shades from all different backgrounds at all different stages in their fitness journeys. From early morning to evening, they could be found barefoot on the big squishy mat in the sunny fishbowl, swinging kettlebells and doing tire squats. Then COVID-19 hit New York City. Monday, we were open and doing business as usual. Tuesday, I was closing my doors. And Wednesday, I was remote teaching a 3rd grader and a 6th grader, Edward says. I was like, wait, what just happened? For nearly a week and a half, I just went into the bathroom and cried. I couldn't process that everything I sacrificed, everything I worked so hard for could be gone. Minority-owned small businesses stand to be hit the hardest by the pandemic's economic fallout. Early reports suggest that upwards of 90% of the minority and women-owned businesses are not getting the relief loans promised from the government. In the best of times, entrepreneurs of color face a multitude of unique obstacles, many of which are embodied in Edwards' experience. Taking straightforward racism out of the equation, of which there is plenty, it is always difficult to get a loan without already having significant capital behind you. The facts are that the average white family in America has 10 times the wealth of the average Black family and 8 times that of the average Hispanic family. In 2019, the SBA found that 49% of the loans from banks go to white-owned businesses, 23% go to Asian-owned businesses, 17% undetermined. 7% to Hispanic-owned businesses, 3% to Black-owned businesses, and 1% to American Indian-owned businesses. But did she go to Carver Bank?
You got a bank with a black bank. These folks are just not understanding the game. They just
they don't. Southside FCU.
They don't understand how the money works. Yeah, and it works from your community. It works from your community on up. These people are taking care of their own. They don't like you though. You don't got to go to Africa with these fools talking that crap. They don't like you over here though. You got to go. You got to go chill. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because it's hard to get loans, much less attention and strategic advice from banks and investors, many minority owners also have more difficulty growing their businesses. In New York City, the virus's long-standing epicenter, only 2% of all small businesses are Black-owned, and only 3% have employees, compared to 7% of businesses that are Hispanic-owned, 21% that are Asian-owned, and 22% of white-owned businesses. Many businesses started by entrepreneurs of color also operate in lower-income areas and on narrower margins. In immigrant communities, there are language impediments. Now, those obstacles are compounding at an alarming rate. In the chaotic scramble to disperse the first $350 billion of relief loans from the Small Business Association, banks prioritize clients who already have loans with them, as well as small businesses that are in reality anything but. The SBA had been essentially offering two types of loans: economic injury disaster loans, EIDL, of up to $2 million, and advances up to $10,000 dispersed to businesses within 3 days of applying. But those advances have yet to materialize. And the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, which offers small businesses loans of up to $10 million to help businesses cover their payroll. Initial PPP funds ran out on April 17th. And on the night of April 21st, the Senate passed a new stimulus package that replenished the PPP with another $320 billion, including $60 billion for community banks, credit unions, and even smaller lenders like Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFIs. This last specification is absolutely key in the effort to reach minority small businesses, the vast majority of which have been left out in the code so far. CDFIs are some of the only lenders firmly rooted in communities of color, and their inclusion in the PPP is something that Greg Bishop, New York City's Commissioner of Small Business Services, has been pushing for. The overwhelming needs of New York City's small business community can only be met by resources of the federal government, he says. We fought for more support in the next stimulus and won an additional $60 billion for our CDFIs and local banks. Our smallest businesses who rely on community partners for support and service now have a greater chance at accessing the capital they need to remain open. Hopefully that money will make it to those who need it most fast. But in the past 3 weeks, as banks overlook small businesses with no safety net, many minority small businesses have already plummeted too far into the red to make it out. Back when the first round of SBA stimulus loans were announced in early April, many entrepreneurs were optimistic. James Hayward, a CPA in Durham, North Carolina, certainly was. Hayward is a Black business owner, and the majority of his accounting firm's clients are minority business owners. He spent 2 days studying the bill and applied for PPP through his bank, Wells Fargo. Bad move. He didn't need much to cover his payroll. He was only asking for $5,000, but as the days passed, he just received more emails from Wells Fargo telling him that, in his words, I was still in the queue, but because of their lending cap, I might need to go apply somewhere else.
Yeah, well, anybody, you see, this is what makes me mad. I'm sorry, Mike, I don't mean to cut it off, but the Negro just doesn't understand what he has in his hand. What's in your hands. What's in your hands? You got to know what's in your hands. These guys don't know. He is an accountant going to Wells Fargo, a racketeer bank. These guys have been, they're proven fine racketeers. You got
Many entrepreneurs of color, their first obstacle in accessing stimulus funds is that they don't have loans or line of credit with a bank. But Hayward is an exception to the rule. He actually has a fairly extensive relationship with Wells Fargo. He has 2 business accounts, a line of credit, a business credit card, his personal account, his mortgage, and a certificate of deposit. So when he wasn't getting that little check for $5,000, he started thinking something was off. Banks are for-profit businesses, right? Hayward says. They are only making 1% of interest on these loans. They don't have the infrastructure for small loans, so their underwriting process for my $5,000 is the same for somebody requesting $500,000. So which one do you think they'll spend the manpower on? If I was a bank, I would say, yeah, okay, I could just give you this money, but it's better for us to give larger amounts of short. I could just give you this money, but it's better for us to give larger amounts to short bets than smaller amounts to a whole bunch of risky borrowers.
See, that's a lie. See, that's a lie. A lot of smaller businesses.
Let me finish your article.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Especially if your business isn't really open right now. Not to be doom and gloom, but this may cripple you forever, and the bank will be left holding the bag. Get the bag. Because I don't get the sense that they necessarily believe that the government will get the SBA money to them in a timely fashion. Hayward isn't alone in this conclusion. Benjamin Burke is a senior tax consultant at Snappy Tax in Ocala, Florida. In an email, he said, I have been told off the record that banks are prioritizing the PPP loans first for people that have pre-existing loans with them.
What was I just saying?
Then the bigger clients, then everyone else. Additionally, some banks will not even touch PPP loans under $30,000. If a business owner did not have reserves, it won't be long before they have to close for good. We are already seeing clients in this position.
Damn.
Let me finish this article.
Right,
one of Burke's clients in Brooke McGee, a Latina business owner based in Ocala, a 33-year-old single mom with 6 kids, one of whom is disabled and severely immunocompromised. McGee worked for a trucking company for 13 years until she got laid off in 2019. So last October, she founded her own company, First Watch Dispatch, a carrier shipping and dispatch service. She started out running the business from home, but that quickly proved impractical since, as she puts it, I don't have a big house in a nice neighborhood, and having 20 semi-trucks pull up to my driveway was not conducive. So she tried to secure a loan from an office space, but couldn't. So in January, she says, I took my life savings and leased a building. This February, after maxing out her credit card and having the lights turned off in her home, McGee was finally able to pay herself for the first time. Then the pandemic started to spread and McGee had no choice but to shut down, even though her company plays an important role in the supply chain. A big part of McGee's job is handling truckers' paperwork, which has been through literally thousands of hands at stops from New York all the way to Florida. The risk to her daughter's life is simply too great. I'm trying to work from home, she says, but I can't have the truckers come to my house. Plus, I have 6 kids in 6 different grades and only 2 computers. As of our conversation, McGee had tried for weeks to get through on the government site to file for unemployment. Burke, her tax consultant, has helped her apply for the EIDL and PPP loans through her bank, the Florida Credit Union, but she hasn't heard back about either. Because McGee's truckers are all private contractors, her PPP request covers only her salary, and Burke worries the request won't be worth her bank's time. My fear is that these smaller businesses, smaller size loans are being overlooked. He said plainly, now McGee's landlord is threatening to evict her. Get out.
Get out of there.
While reporting this story, I talked to many minority small business owners who assumed that they'd have an easier time getting approved because the amount they were asking for was so negligible. But as time went on and stimulus funds dwindled, some owners inevitably turned to outside parties for help, leaving them exposed to entirely different threat. The New Body Project has 5 employees, including Edwards, and she requested $12,500 to cover payroll. But as soon as the SBA loans were announced, she called TD Bank, where she had her business checking and savings account, to ask about next steps. She waited on hold for over an hour to be told that they don't know because they have not been guided by the government yet. As she waited for help from TD Bank and Panic Research Online, Edwards got an email from Groupon saying that she could apply for the PPP through their partnership with Fundera. Fundera is an online loan broker similar to Cabbage and Lendio, which connects businesses to lenders for a finder's fee from the bank. Edwards was dubious, but figured it was worth a shot and applied and got a response that she made it to the next step with one of Fundera's lending partners, Cross River Bank. Edwards had never heard of Cross River Bank, so she was hesitant, but she decided to move forward with the application because she still hadn't heard anything from TD Bank and knew the loans were first come, first serve. Then the PPP money ran out. While it's not always a bad idea for business owners of color who are being underserved by their banks to look for funding through legitimate brokers like Fundera, attorney, stimulus analyst, and entrepreneur contributor Matt Sorensen points out that borrowers would be aware that the SBA approved lenders these brokers will connect you with are still likely to put their established clients first. Of greater concern is the lack of information and reliable advice available to desperate business owners, particularly immigrant entrepreneurs for whom English is their second language. The Renaissance Economic Development Corporation is a CDFI and affiliate of Asian Americans for Equality. They've been lending to minority business owners in New York City since 1997, and their managing director, Jessie Lee, says she's seen a surge in predatory practices. A lot of our borrowers are getting secondary information from their ethnic media, she says. It's so confusing that a lot of them have turned to brokers and accountants for guidance, and some of these brokers are predatory. I just found out that one of our clients went to a loan broker who said that they do the PPP program when they don't, and they took $2,000 from my business owner. Her advice for dealing with third parties, always verify.
Yeah,
Are you an agent of an SBA lender? Do you have SBA lenders agreements? Renaissance is one of roughly 2,500 nonprofit treasury certified CDFIs across the country. CDFIs have long played a critical role in dispatching federal and state funds to the businesses in underserved communities that need them most. And in past crises like 9/11 and Hurricane Sandy, CDFIs dispersed substantial public relief funds. But as the COVID-19 crisis has played out, Lee says that Renaissance has had to rely on private funds like part of a recent $1 million commitment from Chase to minority-owned NYC businesses. It hasn't been nearly enough. When we spoke a week ago, Lee told me that over 1,000 businesses have submitted interest forms, and we're only going to be able to help maybe 200 of them. Bishop, the commissioner of NYC's Small Business Services, says giving CDFIs nationwide the capital they need to lend in their communities would be a game changer for minority-owned small businesses. CDFIs and small community banks are really the the only lenders operating in communities of color, he says. They look beyond the credit score. They are very flexible until this point. However, most CDFIs haven't been able to offer PPP loans. We've been advocating for them to be allowed to participate, but it's really about liquidity, Bishop explains. It's a catch-22 because CDFI borrowers are often small businesses and communities of color. Many operate with very narrow margins and are now struggling to pay their rent, much less their business loans. Consequently, the CDFIs are too low on cash to offer PPP. Now, thankfully, the Senate's latest stimulus bill, which should move through the House quickly, has allocated $30 billion of new $320 billion PPP funds specifically to community banks and credit unions, and another $30 billion to even smaller lenders like CDFIs, a total of $60 billion intended to reach minority and women-owned businesses. Lee is cautiously optimistic. We believe the legislation is a step in the right direction because it gives smaller businesses a fighting chance at securing funding and enables CDFIs to help minority-owned business owners in our community, she says. That being said, $30 billion will go quickly and will not come close to meeting the needs of millions of distressed businesses. In the weeks ahead, we will need more financial resources to stabilize our neighborhood mom and pop businesses. One thing Lee is sure of is that the 8-week time period for PPP is unrealistic in New York. We believe businesses will need more funding over a longer period of time, given the city and state timelines for reopening the economy. And payroll assistance helps, but businesses still must figure out how to pay their rent. This is a big issue they are having to confront even after securing a PPP loan. Businesses need flexible capital to address their unique needs. Still, while the money is there, any minority small business that hasn't yet submitted an SBA application with another lender should reach out to Community Bank or find a CDFI near them. Hayward, the Durham-based CPA, thinks that moving forward, CDFIs and community banks should play a bigger role. But he also thinks this should happen in tandem with the SBA creating more permanent classifications of small businesses so that truly small businesses with no capital aren't competing for loans with companies 20 times their size. You can call them micro businesses or Main Street businesses, but people with gross revenues under $2 million or something like that, he says, because when anyone in Washington gets on TV and says, we're doing something for the small businesses, and I'm looking at the qualifications for a small business and thinking, so what am I, a blip? And maybe that could be the domain of the community banks and CDFIs, because the commercial banks could care less about those loans anyways. The systemic prejudice in the situation, in the beginning, it's not racial, Hayward continues, but we all know it's not right. I don't have to go beat the drum on that. To the bigger banks, the message is, I'm just saying that you have to be honest. You have a lot of business owners who are truly expecting to get this money. Their margins are so small to begin with. For minority businesses, this is crushing. Edwards is still waiting to see if her PPP application gets approved at Cross River Bank. But in the meantime, after working through the initial shock, she's been characteristically resilient. In a matter of days, she designed an entire online business fitness program for the New Body Project, complete with a weekly family karaoke session. I won't throw in the towel, she says. I believe this will make us better when we come out of it. It's never easy to get help when you need it. So I'm blessed. My business is something that can be continued online. It's actually given me the opportunity to tweak my business model. I'm really proud of what I created. What a disaster. What a disaster. This isn't capitalism. I don't know what this is. this is this is not capitalism. This is nothing beneficial for anybody who has a business below $2 million. You know, and they're right about this in the article. You know, all these people talking, oh, yeah, we're here to, and I'm a small business guy. I stand with the unions. Yeah. Yeah, right.
There's a reason why, like I said, Trump was pushing for basically no oversight for all of this stimulus money. Everyone's still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, just making sure.
Anyone thinking that this is out here for the small business person and help you get through it, this is not what this is about. It's clearly evident. We see it, and that's about the end of it. Mike wanted to read this article, you know, going on long, and I could appreciate it, but at the end of the day, if you don't set up your own banking institutions in your own communities to work with you, you're done. You're done for. This is one thing I have to give about this COVID. It's tearing the cover off of everything. And you're seeing things in its raw face. You're seeing exactly what it is. You're seeing the Medusa's head and all. You're seeing everything.
Didn't the same thing happen in 2008 too?
Well, 2008 was a little bit different, you know, a little bit different from this, but it was similar. But this has got some unique aspects about it that I think that are really showing you where things really are. And this is a wake-up call for a lot of us. So, you know, if you think that this banking institution and these things around here for you, you're crazy. They took your houses from you in 2008 after they gave you these predatory loans. And you think they're going to try to take your houses from you then, and now they're going to give you money to keep your businesses going. Well, you're small business, and they can make a lot of more money with the bigger businesses and keep the other money flowing for themselves. Really, not going to happen, man. So you guys just wake up and see what's going on. You know, am I surprised at any of this? Nope, I'm not surprised, but man, it's bad. It's bad to see just how bad this thing really is. And this is not about the small guy, and I'm sure that's happening to small white businesses as well. Smaller white businesses, I'm sure they're not getting it, but if it's not happening with them, or they're having a tough time, you know what's happening with you. They ain't giving you jack. Wells Fargo and these shit banks. You go into these guys because you think their ice is colder. Yeah, the ice is real cold, so cold. They'll freeze on you. There's a freeze on your ass. That's how cold their ice is for you. They got a freeze on you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess it probably got worse, like you said, because after '08, the bigger banks got bailed out, and you saw a lot of the smaller ones either get swallowed up by the big ones or just go belly up.
Some did, but some smaller banks survived and got bigger because they didn't jump out there and do a lot of the crap that these other idiots did, and got caught up in a lot of this other, all these collateralized mortgage. I mean, they got caught up in a lot of just bullshit, and a lot of other banks ran a cleaner business, and they didn't get caught up in this stuff, and a lot of them didn't even need TARP. So the smaller, well-run banks are still around. Okay, the ones that were run loose and goosey, fine, and the big ones were out there that were loose and goosey as hell. Well, we saw what happened with that. You and I paid them. You and I bailed them out. So I'm not going to sit back here and even argue about this. And even look at this. Just look at what's going on. Just look at this. This is bad. This is bad. I mean, it's a racket, another racket going on. And the predatory lenders are going to come out here. These third-party guys, they're going to have these other small lenders that are going to come out here, start lending you money, start beating you up for 20, 22, 23% interest. They're going to be able to get away with it, all right? They give you $5,000, you better pay them, a damn near $1,000 a month on that money when it comes up, and that doesn't even include the principal. May as well go to the street and get it from your local shark. Better to do it from there. I damn near say it's better to do that than to do what's going on here with the crap that's getting ready to go down. It's ill. This is horrible.
We got DE Raptor on the panel and Joe.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Joe. Good evening, everybody. How you guys doing?
Right.
What's going on, guys?
Good. Interesting conversation. There's a lot to unpack on this topic. This is Joe speaking. I don't know if I can go, but I'll quickly start off by just saying that, yeah, you really need to understand the pool you're swimming in, right? Like all you guys have said, as a small guy dealing in a big bank, you're not priority. You never was. They just let you around because you met the minimum requirements. When the big bucks come out, you think they're gonna service you when they have so much other demand? You know what I mean? They could do but so much. You really need to make sure that you're swimming in the right pond. Like that the bank, the assets that they hold are equivalent to what you think you might be able to work with. You know what I'm saying? The smaller banks is where you're gonna have to be at, and you're gonna have an established relationship with them. You know what I mean? But not counting the PPP loans, you don't really need to have that good credit. But like the EIDL loan, you need to have a good relationship and a good credit to get that loan. You know what I mean? And most of these people don't really have employees like that, and these employees need to be held. So it's not as simple as it seems to get a loan. With these programs, they make it seem like, oh yeah, it's just fill out 2 sheets of paper for the PPP loan and fill out 4 or 5 sheets of paper for the EIDL loan. Plus, you need a P&L, plus you need your, financial statements. Most small businesses don't even know what that is, unfortunately. They're just shoestring businesses, right? Just trying to get by. And this is not really going to help them. This is not really going to help them, unfortunately.
The thing is, this is what keeps a lot of black businesses from even competing. I see some comments in the chat, but the thing is, black businesses can't ever compete, which is why you even have a genre called minority-owned small businesses, MBDA. So the thing is, these areas are, when people ask, well, how come there aren't a whole lot of black businesses? Well, there you go right there. That's why there aren't any black businesses. They're being screwed over every opportunity. And so then there is a question of what to do. We've talked about this many times before, probably the last 6 months, about a public banking system would put a dent inside a lot of these Wells Fargo, basically racket organizations. It would put a stop to them immediately, but they're always the ones who are trying to stop the public banking from even existing. If you had a public bank, that will be the place you will go get your loan from and go get your financing from. But these, these Wells Fargo's, BOAs, Bank of Americas and whatnot, they don't want you having any of that type of stuff, but they want you to, your community looks like crap because they don't want to lend to you. And then they say, well, you don't have a good line of credit. You don't meet these requirements. Well, yeah, you're not going to meet those requirements. You've been underserved for the last 150 years.
That's a fact. And that's exactly why they want it to go that way. That's why when you do hear about various public banks that do exist, for the few who do hear about them, they're not talked about because they certainly don't want you coming out here and there's no laws or anything against them. They truly want to serve the community. These guys are not about serving any communities at all. These guys are about serving themselves, a few of their big giant clients to keep them going because they keep the big money flowing for them. And they're not thinking about anybody else. And the other money they're going to come in, and the more money that they bring in from the Fed, that's more money they're going to give to those guys. They're not going to give to you. So they're not thinking about you, man. They're not thinking about you. Their interests are not your interests.
But then the question is: this really capitalism? This is not capitalism.
It's not capitalism. I mean, we talk about that here, and you'll have people here tell you that you guys are communists or something crazy like that when they don't understand what we're actually dealing with. And we've gone over this ad infinitum, but it still doesn't register. I mean, we have small numbers, not a lot of people watch this stuff to learn. But you're not in a true, you're in a crony capitalist system, or a socialist system for, the one percenters, if you will. You're not in a real capitalist system for the average small business person who really is out here to try to make a living, build a business, take care of their family, maybe a few employees, and do it. That's been the backbone of this country. It's been small business. And here you are, look how they're treating you. I mean, so, you just have to, like I said, this COVID is just taking a cover off of a lot of stuff. And, I think this is pretty obvious here. I don't think there's even any explanation from that article. I think it just spells everything out as to where you are with this right now, and where you as a small business person, as a just a smaller individual out here really stand in this society underneath this exceedingly damaged system that we're dealing with, this crony capitalist corrupt system.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, Mike, when you say public banking, do you mean like are you literally thinking like just a co-op type of bank, or like something like a lending tree type of model where people individually can sort of go buy notes and stuff like that from businesses?
The model of the North Dakota Bank. That bank has stood the test of time since before the Federal Reserve was even invented. Well, actually, after the Federal Reserve was launched.
You said the North Dakota Bank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the
Bank
only
of North Dakota.
Yeah, and so that model has been proven to work the last 100 plus years. The last 120 years has been proven to work. The problem is in predominantly Black areas, your Titans, your Megalodons, whatever you want to call them, your Bank of Americas, your Wells Fargo's, they do not want a public banking structure developed in these areas. They don't want it. Your Western Unions, your checks cash, those predatory institutions, they don't want a public banking structure being established in these areas.
Yeah, the crazy thing with those check cashing places, if I remember correctly, they weren't even those became illegal. Became legal, I want to say in the 2000s. Like I want to say for a while those were illegal in certain states.
Yeah, but that may have been the case. I've always seen them my whole life. They've been around since the 70s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they've been around. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's just one of those things. So when I talk about public banking, we did a whole live stream on public banking. But the thing is, banks don't want to lend to marijuana dispensaries because it's risky. So where are they supposed to do their business then? Oh, let's come up with a public bank. Oh no, you guys can't have that. You see, this is not capitalism. All these, what frustrates me in Nagone as well, all these Negroes running around talking about how they're capitalists. I'm a capitalist Negro. I'm a capitalist this and capitalist that. This is not capitalism, man. This is not capitalism. They rewrote the rules to keep you out of it. So how are you a capitalist?
Yeah, you have a very twisted idea of what capitalism is, as if capitalism can't be used in a more of a positive manner, right? Mm-hmm. Capitalism has to be this goddamn monopoly man character, predator, like you said, predatory lending, loan sharking.
Yeah, pass, go collect $200. Black people really frustrate me, man. They really frustrate me when they call themselves capitalists. There's nothing capitalist about what's going on here. Nothing. This Black woman went to several banks in her community and she was denied. Not because she was a criminal, not because, she voted the wrong way, but because she was a Black woman trying to get a loan and they told her to go take a hike. And then these same people will come back around, these places they're like ghettos here. Well, yeah, it's supposed to be that way because you've undermined them. That's not capitalism, man.
Hey, but then, we say put your money in a Black bank, mm-hmm. right? And, hey, people think that that's sort of like a third-rate option.
Well, it's a different story because in this situation, in Brooklyn, she should have went to Carver. She should have went to Carver, but that's a whole different perspective. But
well, I guess I'm only bringing it up. I guess I'm only bringing it up in the sense of, you know, where we put our money does speak volumes about what type of control we leverage, right? Because
It
if we
sure
put our
does.
money in, if we put our money in a place that's going to have our back and lend to us when we're going to get out here and try to put more money in their institution, then they see it as more of a partnership, right? Whereas in the other scenario, you know, your big banks, based on one, what Lewis Rossman has been saying for like the last 2 months, and two, what was in this article right here, it's literally a metrics thing. You touched on it. It's a, okay, for the same amount of work that I have a human resource, i.e. A loan processor, right? So this, I'm paying this person X amount of dollars an hour. Okay, so do I pay him X amount of dollars to process a loan for $10,000? Or do I pay him the same amount of money to process a loan for $100,000? Well, I'll get more ROI on the human resource capital that I expend out. And now I'm not saying that is the sole reason why they do it, but that's one of the considerations, as the article pointed out.
Well, the key thing here is, you know, the banks, their bread and butter, most banks that exist are the small business executive of the small businesses. That's what keeps them going. They lend to small business, help them grow. That's how they make their money. Right. Lend to a small company that's running a solid business. You keep lending them to them, they get bigger. That's the bread and butter of their game. These guys are going to get some bread and butter of their game. That's how banks really do that. That's how banks make it. Banks don't make it off of just lending to big giant guys, because big giant guys can fold too. And then you put a lot of money out there. Next thing you know, you get torn out the frame. What banks do is they have a lot of small businesses that they lend to, and they consistently get a measurable return on their money that they've lent out to the smaller businesses and helps them to grow. That's why the state bank of North Dakota, why they've been open since 1915 and have had one closing, no anything. They're not dealing with big giant super giant companies. They have some fairly decent ones that come in there. But their bread and butter is small business executive.
Agriculture.
The small business. So they grow their community around. They have small businesses that they consistently deal with them, and they consistently help them to grow, farms and everything else like that. And that's their bread and butter. That's how they grow. They haven't had one closing, not one run on their bank, no financial issues in over 100 years. Well over 100 years. And nobody wants to talk about them. Democrats, Republicans, they don't want to deal with that because it serves the needs of their community. That's what that's really all about. And that's how classically smaller banks and how they've dealt. They've dealt with community banks and helped to grow the community around them. That's their bread and butter, man. That's their bread and butter. They know that's a business model that's been going on in the banking community in the Western world for hundreds of years. And that's what goes on today. But these guys are telling you, well, you're too small, we're not looking out for you. This is the biggest fuck me game I've ever seen. And then they're getting this money and not giving it to you because they know most of these small businesses that have a client base, that have money coming in, that have clients. As soon as they open up, people are going to go right back, and boom, they're back in business. That's what they go with. They don't want to lend to the small business because they don't want to. They don't want to now. They got bigger guys who they feel they can grab some bigger money with. They're telling everybody else, go take a hike. All right. And they're keeping the rest of the other money. It's some ill shit. I say it's just a racket. They're saying, fuck. They're giving a big FU to you. So the small business is what banks actually move on. That's what feeds them. That's how they keep rolling. You think TD Bank started out by jumping on big, massive, giant multinational corporations? Hell no. Started out with the small guy in the corner, the small guy who's got the auto repair shop, the guy that's got the computer business, and that's how these guys do it. And that's how that works. That is absolutely how that works. That's even how that works in the illegal businesses. From the loan sharks. They're not out there just making money on a guy that owes them $450,000. They make a lot of money on guys who are doing $200, $300, $400 loans. That's their bread and butter. That's the banking institution. That's how that works. So, don't run that okey doke on me. Don't scam me with that. That's bullshit. I know exactly what goes on. So that's the real travesty of this game. That's why I'm just looking at another racket going on, and it's just, man, these guys have no end. They have no end to what they're doing. This shit needs to be torn out the frame. I'm just telling you. All right, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The reason why, I kind of brought the public banking piece was that in the article, it says that she has to go around community and raise money. Oh, really? Wouldn't it be great if you had a community public bank or a public bank in your community, where the majority of the people would be the stakeholders of it? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be democratic? No, these people in New York, and I hate to bash New York, NYC, but they have no interest in this. They have no interest in this. Your elected officials and all these other people don't want you talking about that type of stuff because Wells Fargo, Bank of America, TD Bank, all your major publicly traded organizations don't want Black people or brown people, for that matter, coming together and having any sort of economic power in their own communities. And then they turn back around and say, we don't lend to those communities because they're too risky. Well, of course they can be fucking risky. You wouldn't deserve them. Go ahead, Renaissance man.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask, do we have any insight, anyone on the panel, on how the banks who got this money, how it was divvied up to them? Like, did they just say banks over X amount of size get this amount? Like, any of y'all have any insight there?
It's more than likely calculated by holdings. The article also illustrated here how there was some sort of company that basically served as sort of like a broker, and then they would get finder's fees, right? And so they were referring people to, what was it, something River Bank, right? Cross River. Yeah, Cross River Bank. So even like a bank, I've never even heard of Cross River Bank, but even they got some sort of disbursement. So from the banking to the Fed level, before this came down, all bank presidents, and people, heads of these financial institutions kind of knew what was coming down the pike ahead of time. So I'm pretty sure there was a collection of data points that they had to provide which would determine what that bank would receive, right? Obviously, Bank of America, Chase, JP Morgan, they're going to get your larger portions, but somebody like a Cross River Bank, for example, I don't know what their portfolio looks like, right? What type of, maybe say, businesses they've underwritten, equipment that they've underwritten, all these types of things that would actually increase or in terms of a bank's portfolio, that would increase its value, or would more or less justify their request for whatever the amount of money that they were looking for. So I think it was spread. I think go ahead and go. Yeah,
the banks get a percentage of what they have under cash under management. So
so when you start talking about going to community banks and things like that, you're increasing basically their cash under management, their capitalization, and as a result, something like this happens, they get more money.
That's correct. So that's generally how that works. Now with this Trump administration and how these guys are rolling, Lord, I don't know, man. We have to see how we have to look at the fine print about how these guys are running. But that's generally how that works. The key thing here, really, that we're really talking about is, I think, just like what Mike brought up and what Complex was talking about just a couple of seconds ago, is, really, dealing, with your community-based banking system that's really going to invest with you in your community at this stage. I think that's clearly obvious now. All of these Black people running around dealing with these white banks and everything else like that really look at you as a turd. Yeah, thank you very much for putting your money into my bank. I'm going to take a fee from you every month, and that's cool. But when you come to ask me for money, fuck you. You just pay me. That's where we're coming from. Fuck you, pay me. That's where they're coming from. So I think this should be a very clear wake-up call to all Black business people and all that who want to get out here and play in this game, where you might start thinking about having to go right now, to do that. Instead of every $10,000 you put into the bank, into the banking system coming out of the black community, only $4 or $5 goes into a black one. I think you should now it should be every $10,000.
Really should consider, yeah.
Every $10,000 you put into the banking system, I would say maybe a good 7 or 8,000 at least should go into a black banking game, and the rest you might want to flit around in other places, but that's how you're going to secure your tighten up your schools, your housing, your business, and everything else like that is all going to be tied to that. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing exactly how that works. And
big bro, I would say this, man. Like, if you want to start off with the right foot with something, man, when you get your stimulus check, why don't you go ahead and take that money and open you up an account at a black bank, or take a portion of it. But it's about time.
Those people are not going to be able to do that. The whole purpose of the stimulus check is for them to actually go out and pay their bills.
I get it, man. But what does it take to open up? What, even a savings account? What, $20, $50? Something.
Yeah. It's cheap. You don't need to put much money in. If you want a checking account,
like $100 or something.
I think it's like that, but I think it's more like $1,500 you put in, and then they don't charge you
the money market account and that. So
if you
basically something, purchase a financial product. I'm just saying something, man. Like you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, that would be ideal in a pre-COVID environment, but the tax are meant to secure these people for where they are right now, not actually to be put in anywhere else. So the thing here is, DE have to have his hand up.
Okay.
While they were talking about the banks and how this money is being divided up, I was thinking, what you're seeing was put together before the Congress set up this bill. This bill that Congress set up was made up by the banks, the big banks, and the guys on Wall Street. Trump called them in, had a meeting with all of these guys. They decided what they were going to do. They're the one who set up the brokerage. They're the ones who set up the payout. That's what you see when the money was loaned out, that the not so big guys, the guys, not the billion-dollar companies, but the multi-million dollar, like the hundreds of millions.
Mm-hmm.
The loans went to them.
Yeah, it was for them. You're right, D. You're right.
Whoa, hold on, please.
No, I'm saying you're dead right on it.
That's why you see the loans went to them, and the loans, the loans were given out within I would say, when I was looking at this thing, I think within about 8 to 10 days, all the money was gone. How do you think that was done?
They're talking about giving the money back.
That's because everybody's got on their case. People start writing articles about it and all that. But the money was given out to them within a short period of time. How did it get? Because these guys knew it was coming. And these guys had their paperwork ready. The brokers already promised them this is where it's going to be, and nobody's going to make a complaint about it. It's only after now. You got people like the LA Lakers. LA Lakers need money. It's only after people found out that these people were getting this money and people start complaining about it that they say, okay, we're going to get it back.
The Lakers got $4 million.
It doesn't matter how little compared. What they got was little.
They shouldn't have got anything. They should.
One of their lowest player makes that. This is what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. They shouldn't have got any at all. Period. They're a corporation that if this thing is going to be shut down for a week or two or a month, they are not playing any games. The Coliseum is not. They're not paying on the Coliseum. You know what I'm saying? The Coliseum is given to them. Bonds.
Yeah.
People.
Yes, right. That's revenue bonds.
Bonds. You know what I'm saying? The city owns it. The city or the state or whoever owns it. So they're not losing any money. Yeah. This thing was set up to go this way. And it's only after the massive amount of complaints start coming in that they retracted.
Yeah, they started to see them. They went to that money like termites.
So in this article that we are seeing here, the system is already set up. Sorry, Mike, you said this is, you and the Golden said this is not capitalism, but this is capitalism functioning at its best.
I don't. You see, when you have a cabal of guys,
it is not a system.
Well,
for
listen,
the poor. It is not a system.
DE is only set up for a small group of people. That's not set up for everybody. You know, that's the whole thing. It's not a capitalist system. It's a cartel. You're talking about a cartel, fam. I mean, it's a small group of guys that are going to get this thing set up. They sit down. They literally sit down like the Cali, Ochoa and and the Medellin cartel, and they sit down and they carve all this up. It's a cartel, fam. That's what we're talking about as far as capitalism is concerned. These guys are not playing an equal game. They got their cartels lined up. They've got their monopolies lined up, and this is the game that they're playing. And everybody is on it. Who's at the desk, who's at the table. Those are the ones who get down. Everybody else on the outside is fucked. That's what we're talking about. You can't run cartels like this, or run monopolies and so forth. There's actually laws against some of this stuff on the books here in this country.
Yeah, actually, in China, they put a couple of those crony bankers in jail.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah.
They sure did, Mike.
Yeah, this was recently. This was about the last maybe 9 months or so. They put these guys in jail. In Russia, they put a bullet in your head.
They'll put a bullet in your head in China too.
Yeah,
they'll pull a bullet in your head in Singapore and these other places. These guys don't fuck around. They're like the mob. They will fucking smoke your ass. They'll clip you. So they're not letting guys run roughshod like that. They're not doing it. But here they can set up these cartels and run syndicate on you all day. They're running syndicate, fam. I understand how that works. They're running syndicate and capitalism. They're running syndicate. They're running a syndication on you. Can't have that. Can't have that going on.
It's basically
that's why we see what we see. But anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it's basically the Homestead Act reinvented in modern times. A bunch of blue-eyed, pale-faced people are basically benefiting while everybody else who doesn't look like them has to suffer. That's not a true capitalist system. That's a broken system. That's a broken system. This woman went to several banks and couldn't get a loan. Couldn't get a loan to save her life. And even though she had, and this brother in North Carolina, who banks with Wells Fargo all around, can't get a $5,000 loan.
They told him kick rocks, get in the hole. If he was at Carver and he needed that, they would have cut him a check the next day. Yeah, they'd have cut him a check the next day. What's your clients? Let's take a look and see what you've got. Who's coming in? What's coming in for the month? Boom, 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 boom. We got this. We got this. We got this. Can we get this by next month? We can get this within the next. We can get this within the next 90 days. Okay, no problem. This is the interest rate we're going to give you on this. Bam, you got it. Boom. By the end of the week, bang, zoom, $5,000 check in the mail. You got it. You good. You straight.
And the
they tell you come and pick up your money. That's where you're at with something like that. Okay, because they're gonna know what you've been doing. They're gonna know your house. They're gonna know you. They're gonna know even your kids or somebody else like that. Your wife will roll through. They'll know what's happening. That's what banking's all about. That's what it's supposed to be. To serve you. And about that. They're running cartels. That's a whole different game. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
And the Fed has been pumping $1 trillion a day to keep the market afloat. And then, I mean, and some of that money has trickled down to these freaking banks, man. It's the biggest crime heist. I don't know. I don't remember the last time you've seen a crime heist like this. Maybe 2008, but this is the biggest crime heist. Basically they've rigged the system and
they're doing it in front of you.
Yeah, in your face, they rigged the system. I mean, imagine in basketball, you got a 24-hour shot clock, man. They basically turn the shot clock off for these people.
They're doing this shit in front of your ass. In front of you. They don't give a fuck. Like I was talking to my friend the other day. I said we should call this country the United States of Chuck. Why? Because Chuck just don't give a fuck. And that's where these guys come from. They don't give a fuck. You know, it's a few guys. It's a few guys at the top. It's a few people. Everybody else is closed out. You know,
All right, let me read this article. This is from nonprofitquarterly.org, how philanthropy can support Black workers. My career in philanthropy started at the Charles Stewart Mart Foundation in Flint, Michigan. While Flint has been in the news for the past few years for its water crisis, it was once a thriving area with a reputation as the most affluent city in Michigan. Its local economy was powered by General Motors, which employed about half of its population. In its heyday, GM accounted for roughly 90% of income from 90% of its income from wages, salaries, and shareholder holdings. But Flint's fortunes eventually took a dramatic turn. By the time I arrived in the late 1990s, economic misery and social decay cast a shadow over the city, disproportionately impacting its Black population. Flint's economic narrative is a common one for many American cities, particularly for those with Black populations. It begins with the economic highs of job growth, improved access to goods and services enhanced by buying power, and improvements in quality of life, followed by a dramatic tumble into extreme wealth inequality and economic insecurity. Such economic booms have historically meant fewer jobs, less earnings, and wealth accumulation, and less job security for Black workers with their white counterparts. And subsequent economic busts have hastened for the shift of Black workers to the ranks of the unemployed and financially fragile. We are seeing this play out right now as we weather the extreme economic meltdown caused by a coronavirus pandemic. Everyone is taking a financial hit, but the slope of the current economic turmoil and disparity will likely be steeper for most Black families. During the Great Migration of the 20th century, millions of Black Americans fled the terrorism of the South for the relative sanctuary and opportunity in northern Midwestern and Western cities. While many found work, they also faced unsafe working conditions, low wages, limited mobility, and harmful practices like hiring discrimination and labor union bans. Given the nation's history of slavery and financial apartheid, interesting term, it is no surprise that economic transformations, such as the adoption of automation, exacerbate past wrongs and deepen income inequality. According to the Wall Street Journal, the current rate of Black participation in the labor force is as high as it has been since the middle of the 20th century. While this seems like good news, it rings hollow when we reflect on the continued racial gaps in income and wealth. These disparities are driven by dramatic differences in the employment experiences of Black workers. Recent research by McKinsey explains how automation in the economy could replicate past patterns and disproportionately expel Black workers from the labor market. We've been talking about that. The findings indicate that Black Americans are overrepresented in low-wage service jobs with little or no room for growth. These jobs are more likely to be automated, reducing or eliminating the need for human workers, and could hit Black workers the hardest as in the past. Compounding the matter, Black workers are underrepresented in job categories most likely to grow, offer higher wages, and be performed by people. How can philanthropy intervene? Of course, breaking this pattern will require the combined efforts of nonprofits, the public sector, the private sector, and philanthropy. However, here are 5 philanthropic, philanthropists. Sorry, I'm having a hard time pronouncing this right now. I really need some water. Here are 5 ways philanthropy itself can act to help ensure a fairer economic future, centering the need to level the playing field for Black workers. Number 1, use all foundation assets. Let me expand this out. Funding organizations that support and advocate for Black workers are an important resource, but a limited tool. A range of additional tools is available to creatively deploy philanthropic capital. For example, direct investments in local small business development can help spark and sustain vibrant communities while opening more job opportunities. Investing in entrepreneurs of color, who often are more likely to hire Black workers, can also create pathways to jobs and opportunity for Black workers. Low or no interest debt to seed, sustain, or help scale local businesses that hire Black and other workers of color is another deliberate approach to expand opportunity. The philanthropic sector would follow the example of many corporations and government agencies that set annual procurement spend targets with businesses owned by entrepreneurs of color and women. Foundations can also institute labor standards for its vendors to ensure the firms with which they conduct businesses treat their workers fairly on matters such as pay equity, paid sick leave, and livable wage. I don't know why this keeps moving around. We can also partner with neighborhoods to build community wealth and erase the racial wealth gap. Our organizations have the latitude afforded by patient capital to invest in the promise of economic models that broaden opportunity for all. Leading organizations such as Common Future, Center for Economic Democracy, Boston Ujima Project, we've mentioned that last week, and the Runway Project offer adoptable approaches that demonstrate how flexible and viable funding might make hyper-local economies work for all. Such efforts need deeper investment in testing at a larger scale. The premise of equitable growth being applied here could also shape philanthropic investments and broader economic development efforts, such as loan loss reserves and seed capital to leverage economic development efforts led by Black and other entrepreneurs of color. I think that's actually a very good idea. That's already been in play though. Number two, support worker-owned businesses. Enterprises that empower workers as decision makers in their companies help to close income disparities, retain jobs in local communities, and reinforce democratic values. Employee stock option plans are the most common form of worker ownership in the US. A comparative study of the impact of economic well-being among young workers found that those with employee ownership had higher net household wealth, longer tenures on the job, and higher median incomes. Philanthropy can help raise awareness about the significant impact of worker ownership or economic security among business owners, particularly those operating in proximity to the communities of color. Foundations could invest resources to incentivize conversion of privately held companies to worker ownership. Flexible philanthropic funds could also be used to help train and prepare workers for shifting to a worker-owned structure. We talked about this. Magona 11 has always been very vocal about this, the most out of all of us. And I think we talk about the future of economics with Black people beyond capitalism, and this is one of the talking points, one of the initiatives that has to be taken into consideration of worker-owned organizations and companies and small businesses, where you have, instead of just having one person like this woman in Brooklyn who had this issue, if it was divvied out through the other 4 employees, this might have been a softer blow.
Yeah, and it could have kept them actually going a lot more. And then what they could have done is gotten even more creative with maybe, let's say, doing online training sessions and so forth like that, with all their people kind of chipping in and interacting and interfacing with their customers online now to do exercise and everything else like that, which could actually help to increase even a greater amount of income coming in instead of just 1, but 3 or 4 of her people. that could have brought in, I could have brought in a lot more, you know, just more income, and literally kept that that situation going. But a lot of people are not thinking this way. So, but we've seen cooperative businesses. You've got some in New York. You have some actually some bakery shops in New York. You have some out in Cleveland, Ohio. You have some very, very big ones that are international, like Mondrian, that exists in Spain. That is another large bakery, bread factory, and so forth that really has been around since the 90s, and they've done exceedingly well. And businesses like IBM and Microsoft and all of them have come over there to see how this model works and how they can incorporate some of this. So this does work. It definitely works. And
Nagon, are you talking about co-op?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how California built out its cannabis industry.
That's exactly correct. So this is proven to be. I mean, there are many examples, and like you just brought up, that's exactly right. That is exactly what's going on, and that's a way around some of this. And we're gonna have to adopt more and more of this as we move forward. Now, it's a cooperative where a lot of people gain in. You know, your CEO or your top person will make a lot of money as well. They won't be 3, 4, 500 times with with the smaller employees making it. You're not going to have those kind of gaps. But the top dog is going to make the most, and the smaller shareholders and businesses will be in there. But everybody will be in a pot, so everybody will be making money. Everybody will have health care. Everybody will have their basic benefits, and they'll be able to succeed. And that's what this is really all about. And am I a big believer in it? Certainly, I definitely believe in small, proprietors owning their own business and doing their own thing. But I believe cooperative business, especially in the Black community, will work big time because we have less capital. As we have more and more and more capital and build up a lot more, become wealthier, maybe we can look at some things a little differently. But that's a big answer for us right now. Mike and I have talked about this a lot, and he certainly sees it.
Let me just finish this article real quick. Number 3 is fund equitable growth. Finance initiatives that create pipelines into growth industries where Black and other people of color are underrepresented. Not only is it common sense, research shows that aligning funding and skill training with growth sectors yields better results for workers, including sustained work effort, employment with better benefits, and higher earnings. Philanthropic support for partnerships targeted for these industries would make an important contribution to leveling access for Black and other workers of color. To leverage employer demand, these partnerships would need to be rooted in the realities of local and regional economies and prioritize the needs of workers of color along with industry. Additionally, support for career mentoring models, including successfully navigate industries that lack diversity, could add value to the work experience of workers of color. Our foundation support for campaigns that advance worker rights and shield workers from capricious employer. Also, nonprofit partners can serve as intermediaries that help mitigate social barriers such as implicit bias and sector discrimination. Empower as an effective bulwark against biased decisions in pay equity and employment dismissals. Number 4, invest in substantially increasing the management of foundation wealth by asset managers of color, expanding economic opportunity in color. The Federal Small Business Administration companies tend to invest more in firms owned, yet according to the U.S. GAO, people of color and women encounter significant obstacles competing institutional investors like foundations. In fact, the GAO finds less than 1% of 70 trillion in management is directed by firms owned by asset managers of foundations are incrementally making progress, but data cited here indicate there is a need to accelerate to significantly move the needle on the opportunity to hire asset management firms needed from foundation executives and boards, especially board finance committees, which are important in defining performance metrics, makes asset managers diversity tangible and measurable for boards and staff alike. To level the playing field for firms led by people of color, could learn their own goals to the approaches of peer funders. The Association of Black Foundation Executives and Mission Investors Exchange are actively tracking foundation progress on this matter. A number of to establish relationships, build the work with firms led and owned by women and people of color. It's important for foundations to share what they are learning, diversify asset managers. Many foundations have resources and tools for diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which have been helpful to peers. Stands to benefit from knowing the progress and pitfalls of institutionalizing a commitment to hiring diverse asset managers. I don't know why this shit does this. Elevate equitable skills training.
Yeah, Mike. Hey, I was gonna ask you, dude. Is that your mic, bro?
I think it is, because I was wondering as well. Like, is it my internet or is it?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hearing him going in and out.
Right. Okay.
It's the VPN connection. It's makes the Wi-Fi unstable. Number 5, for sometimes workforce training system has failed to meet other workers of color. Workforce development policy has ignored the impact of racial bias, implicit and explicit, to track racially diverse labor market experiences and fallen short. Workers displaced from the labor market, especially Black and other workers of color. Job training law, the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act, continues in this tradition and that could help Black and other workers of color in today's economy. Investment is putting the technical skills and credentials of workers of color for growth. Foundations that support workforce more flexible funding to target investments to expand job opportunities for people of color, especially in early childhood. Partner with workforce training stakeholders to define racially explicit outcomes that can use blockchain. Collaborate with employers to provide racial bias training and make commitments to hiring, retention, promotion, and dismissal protocols. Why not just get rid of those?
Hey, Mike, man, your mic, you keep dropping out, bro.
So I'm not actually saying anything.
It's like every other word.
Yeah,
like that.
I can't hear what your intent is. Sorry.
Yeah.
You might need to, if you're using a VPN, just refresh it and change the IP address and then try again. But
I'm at the end of the article, so it really doesn't matter at this point.
okay.
Fund innovative skills training and credentialing programs using an equity lens and champion equity innovation at the local, state, and federal level with the aim of leveraging government adoption of and investment in scaling successful models. Technological advances like automation have eased life for many of us, yet those advances have come at great cost to many Black workers who have been systematically locked out of the economic opportunity. As we weather this current pandemic fueled financial storm, we need to focus our efforts on bolstering those in low wage jobs who are already living on the margins before the crisis hit. There has never been a more urgent time to test revolutionary ideas that open access to good jobs, livable wages, opportunities to build wealth, and a sustainable future for everyone. And I encourage readers to respond. So, we talked about this many, many times before that I don't know if anybody can hear me at this point.
Nah, it's good now.
Yeah, I got off the VPN, so that's really what's hurting. We talked about this before, that by 2030, I mean, Dr. Clyde Anderson said 2053. We said 2045. Dr. Phoenix comes in and he says 2030. The pandemic says
COVID-19 says.
Yes, COVID-19 says otherwise, right? 2022. This article is pointing to this very thing that we've been talking about for a while. It was only written a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, so that's what's, that's what's being discussed. And I don't think most people really understand the significance of what's about to happen. Everybody in the manosphere who have questioned the legitimacy of our predictions, who said, "Oh, how can you guys measure that?" Well, we can measure that by the education, academic achievement rate, and compound that with the skills factor. And that automation doesn't work at the high end; it works at the low end. So the repetitive tasks that most of these jobs have can be can be automated. Okay, you can create an automated process and you replace it. A year and a half ago, I was telling people at Home Depot that there is a those cashier jobs are going to go away by 2019. By summer 2019, they had already got rid of all those cashiers and put these new point of sales operating systems in there, and now they only have one person really managing it. I don't know how much more we need to really say at this point that automation is coming through and it's going to replace your job. Most of these Black women, I was telling them.
I was going to add too, even you were saying repetitive, I was learning a little bit more about machine learning and deep learning and just how, this technology can pretty much teach itself. Yeah. So so some of these tasks that aren't even necessarily as repeatable as you say, that may be on the table as well. Yeah.
Well, it has to make sense. It has to make sense from a business standpoint, whether or not you want to spend the money automating a certain job. You might spend $200,000, $250,000 on engineers to actually automate that process to replace a job that's only $30,000. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense there.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say you're gonna see it more wide scale in terms of full on automation. Okay, let's take fast food, right? We all know now you go into a fast food restaurant, there's a huge ass tablet where they're asking you to go ahead and put your order in, right? Now, we look at that we see that as kind of weird, but we have a familiarity with tablets, right? Because we have them in the home. So we don't really have an issue with interfacing with them, right? Now, the next step is going to be, you're going to go into that same restaurant, you're going to put your order into the tablet, and then you're going to look in the back, and then there's going to be an automated burrito maker. There won't be an actual human making the burrito. So now we've gone one step further into the automation process in terms of something as benign as fast food, right? And I think that's where it'll kind of start to hit people, right? We don't see the self-driving cars as of yet. They've been tested over the last few years, but I'm saying that next step of automation that I think where people are going to really kind of it's going to kind of like give a shock, initially speaking, is when robots are prepping the food. And I want to say, Mike, there's like a vegan restaurant in Boston that was doing this, right?
I think he's on mute. No, I was going to say, if you think about it, though, what you're saying, that already happens on mass production. When you think about like food that's mass produced on, comes off a conveyor belt and, it's prepackaged and all that. So it's
Right.
already happening on a large scale. You're just talking about bringing it down and put it on a
now
small
we're
scale.
talking now we're talking about in your fast food, right? See, so those jobs, right? Those menial task type jobs that people think are always just going to be in abundance. Look, you purchase a burrito making machine, right? And all you do is based on the order, it already knows how much of what ingredients to put into what. It's going to put up the exact amounts. That way you can get a better measure of all these and everything that you're running through. So you can start to account more from a more fractional standpoint. Everything is getting consistency in terms of production, and it's a robot doing it. So see, over time, when we've removed the people and what you've paid them, the robots have amortized themselves. They paid themselves off.
Yeah, you get better quality, inventory control, all of that.
Well, that's the whole thing about AI. Everybody knows that after every kind of recession or downturn, you have I think the Brain Trust covers on an article I think a couple of days ago. So but it's a fact. Every time you have a downturn or whatever, you come back out of it. They're gonna look to how do we say, automate more. So that's gonna be put on a super. That's gonna be fast tracked for sure. And the technology we know is out there. So this is definitely going to move a lot faster. So those are the issues. Those are some of the things we're going to sit down and really look at. Because this is moving now. Tomorrow's now. So the whole 2053 idea and all that we were talking about. I think you got to fast track this up almost 20 years now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's kind of how we have to start to think from a community perspective. And I know a lot of us are totally out of it. We're out of it. But those who are on it, we're going to have to really take this into our calculus and really start to ramp up as well. And that's where we're at right now. This is kind of a do or die situation.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, if you're someone who's a business owner and you've been closed, I'm sure in your mind, if you're thinking, if this comes back in the fall and we got to go through this again, what can I put in place to ensure that I can stay open?
You're damn right.
If you're a fast food restaurant and you've had to close back because of people, you may be thinking, well, hey, if I automate this, I can stay open because I only need maybe one person in the whole place.
That's it. If your overhead is a lot smaller and you can do certain things, things are going to look a little bit better for you. So, I mean, that's just the pressures of business. And that's what a lot of people are going to have to respond to. And then this is where we are. So we can't bitch and moan about it. And a lot of guys who got their heads in the sand, well, I ain't gonna be there for too long. I mean, you may be totally buried. You forget about your head, your whole body, everything may be buried under the sand from a 6 feet perspective. But that's where we're at. This is not a game. This is real time.
No, because
accelerated. Go ahead, Mike.
No, because the fucking yo-yos want to discuss whether or not the pandemic is going to make certain women come to the table. This is serious business, man. A lot of black men are not going to be working after this pandemic is over. They're just just don't need you.
Facts.
Well, that's not necessarily all the way true. There are new opportunities that there are opening up that we didn't really like. I'm gonna give an example. Like now, they're gonna move back all the strategic antibiotic stuff into manufacturing that in the United States again. So that's an opportunity to come up with people in the pharmaceutical industry to come up with their own companies here. There are going to be a huge amounts of things to clean or ways of cleaning and sanitizing work areas.
Those are
Jeff
not,
Bezos. What can I? Because Jeff Bezos also said he's going to use his entire quarter function of like $4 billion to do that. And he told them, don't expect any profits because this is a major investment that we're going to do. Because remember, this is the fourth virus in 20 years coming from Asia, and I don't think it's going to stop. So we got to be prepared. So I think it's going to be a business. I'm just saying, wherever danger there is opportunity. That's all.
those are not jobs that are going to black men. They'll probably go to someone else, but they're not going to black men. The article is referring to black people. It's really talking about black men being unemployable because of the lack of skill.
Well, I was just mentioning that it's opportunity. Like I'm looking to get together with some of my friends to see if we can start that pharmaceutical company. So I think that's we there is no really barrier to this entry for black men to clean to think about how to sanitize buses and trains. I think that's a golden opportunity, even if they want to use robots, but it's still an opportunity, and that's all I'm saying. That's all.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and that's what the article is saying, right? The article is saying, yeah, there's some opportunities there, but the long term, between now 2022, like the other article we read earlier, this is going to go on until 2022. I work in the pharmaceutical industry. I can tell you right now, black men are not getting those jobs. They're just not.
See, you got it wrong. You're talking about black men getting the jobs. I'm talking about black men starting the companies. It says, I'm say this thing again. If you're looking for the person to give you a job, you already failed. You gotta create your own. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we understand that, but the article is referring to jobs. That's what the article is referring to. That's what we're responding to.
The other thing I was going to add, Mike, the other opportunities I could only think of is possibly construction. If people start actually spending money on infrastructure, and even then, you're going to have a lot of competition there.
Yeah, it's even if they do, I'm in the land of the pharmaceutical and biological capital here in the world. A lot of these companies have built these new properties, man. They're not going to be building these offices because people aren't going to be going back to work. And so there's going to be a lot of slowdown in production.
Oh, I meant more like public works. Like if they take the opportunity to try to invest in like modernizing some of the infrastructure in this country.
Man, they came and fill a pothole in New York City. You gotta be kidding me, man.
I live in New York City. We do that.
I think these brothers are right. I think these brothers, what they're talking about is there are opportunities, and they're right. There's just no question about it. There are going to be opportunities they're going to raise up. The name of the game is, are we going to be prepared to take advantage of these opportunities as well?
Yeah.
From the skill set perspective, where are skill sets that are going to actually make us, qualify ourselves to really get in there and jump on a lot of this. A lot of these brothers have no skills. A lot of you guys can't speak properly. A lot of these guys are just totally fucked up. And how are they, so it's kind of easy to throw them in a warehouse, kind of like you had with Amazon and, put a mask on and risk your life and, pull this here and pull this there very quickly. But those jobs are going to be going away. Where are the new opportunities? How are we really going to be prepared to take advantage of this? And that's where the real deal is coming from. So both you guys are kind of are on the same points, but the skill sets are going to be key. How are we going to integrate into this?
No,
this thing is moving fast.
You're correct.
And New York City has set up this whole zone where I put in 2 proposals already for companies to actually come in there and actually do proposals for pandemic. So there is.
Well, you should also set yourself up as an MBE, a minority business enterprise, and you got to do that through the state. Set that up, and then you'll get a close look at that as well. That's for women in business and minorities in business, WMBE. You got to look at that program. You got to set yourself up for that because that'll fast track you a little bit quicker. I've done that. Brother's done it. We've been doing that, and that's key. That's what's going to get you in a little bit quicker. So I just wanted to put you on game to that. And if you want to talk to me behind the scenes about how to go about the whole process, I can lay that out for you.
Okay.
Right. Go ahead. All right.
Yeah, I don't mean to derail the conversation, but I'm just, there is opportunities, and even I talk to my colleagues who are Indians and Chinese, and um, maybe because I see it differently. I see, like, this is just a way of we can really get in there and make money before the big companies get it, because they're too slow thinking, and this is where if you're smart, you're nimble, you can get in there and do things.
No, you're right. Any downturn presents opportunity for those who are nimble, those who are willing to take risk, and those who are prepared. But as Nicole said, a lot of these guys, they listen to them on YouTube. They don't sound prepared.
No. A
No.
lot of guys are dumb as fuck, and they're talking and they're shooting their mouths off, spitting more COVID than anything else. And
Well, the thing about it, they still arguing about the UBI. I said it's over. That decision has been made. They were talking about that the other day. I said, like, you guys are still talking about that? They walked $14 trillion out, and you're talking about you don't understand what's going on. They really they seem to be emotionally attached to these ideas and don't realize reality. So that's what.
Yeah, that tends to be a lot of conservatives, from my opinion.
Yeah, that's
Emotionally
very,
attached to ideas.
yeah. You're very right about that. And then they're also talking about some of this whack stuff with these women and everything else like that. That's I understand that's entertainment. That's Twinkies for the mind, but that ain't going to help us in these issues that are being talked about in these articles right now that we're talking about. That's not gonna aid us. But
No,
anyway,
it's much bigger. It's much bigger than what they think it is. It's bigger than whether or not one gender is going to surrender to you. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, we're talking about people being completely driven out of the market altogether. Unwanted labor market.
Permanent underclass, essentially.
Yeah, especially, you could very well see the next Native Americans coming out of the Black community. And I hate to say it like that, but that's going to be the case, man. I find it interesting that liquor stores are still open in the Black community.
Well, that's the pacifier. That's what that is. That's the pacifier.
They're open like essential businesses.
Exactly.
They're behind glass cases, and they're sitting up in there as essential business. Keep the Ripple. Let me get a bottle of Ripple. That bottle of Ripple is still moving. So
MD 2020.
All right, let me get this next article. This is from theguardian.com. African Americans bear the brunt of COVID-19's economic impact. Just 2 months ago, in the cabinet room of the White House, sitting at a table surrounded by a handful of his Black supporters, Donald Trump once again praised his job creation record. Black people right now are having the best numbers that you've ever had, and it's really an honor, he said. Nobody has done more for Black people than I have. Nobody has done more. Oh my God.
Dog shit. But anyway.
Yeah, that was February 27th. And Trump was also still claiming he had done an incredible job with the looming coronavirus pandemic. Now the virus has led 26 million Americans to file for unemployment, while the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics will not release unemployment figures broken down by race until the beginning of next month. Economists are certain that Black Americans are suffering the brunt of COVID-19's economic impact and will probably suffer the most dramatic consequences of the looming recession. Even before COVID-19 hit the U.S. in full force, and as the overall unemployment rate hit record lows, Black Americans had an unemployment rate that was almost twice the national rate. In February 2020, When the overall unemployment rate was 3.5%, a 50-year low, the Black unemployment rate was 5.8%. The white unemployment rate was 3.1%. The usual relationship that we see between the national unemployment rate and the Black unemployment rate is typically really close to a 2-to-1. Said Valerie Wilson, director of the Economic Policy Institute's program on race, ethnicity, and the economy. Whatever is being projected for the national unemployment rate is in most instances, we expect to see something close to twice that for Black Americans. This was true for unemployment figures during the Great Recession. The overall unemployment rate peaked 9.6% in 2010. For Black Americans, it was 16%. William Rogers, former chief economist at the U.S. Department of Labor, has estimated that the real unemployment rate for African Americans may have reached 19% in March. The reason why African Americans bear the brunt of the downturns is that when firing decisions start to occur, the least educated and those with the least experience tend to be let go first. There is also continued discrimination in the workplace, Rogers said. Economists who focus on race have long said that this last hired, first fired phenomenon drastically affects Black Americans more than any other group in the US due to the country's history of racism and segregation of Black Americans in the work sector. Workers of color, particularly Black Americans, have long been overrepresented in the lowest paying service and domestic occupations such as taxi drivers and restaurant servers. Working in these fields leads to lower wages. Black Americans have the lowest median wage of any racial group in the US, and the jobs are often seen as most expendable during an economic downturn. Those who get to keep their jobs during the last recession saw little relief even after the recession's recovery period. Even with a low unemployment rate, wage growth for low wage workers, especially for Black workers, has been slow. Black Americans have seen the slowest wage growth compared with other groups of Americans, reaching a growth rate that was 4 times slower at certain wage distribution levels, according to a 2018 Economic Policy Institute report. Even though overall, on aggregate, we were in a better position, many of the underlying weaknesses of our economy were still there. Inequality, both on class and race, Wilson said. Low wages have a ripple effect on a family's ability to save money and build wealth. For Yolanda Murray of Detroit, Michigan, not having savings meant weeks of panic trying to figure out how she's going to pay bills that came on April 1st, after she was furloughed from her job at a hotel. You got the rent, the bills, you got the car insurance, you got groceries and disinfectant supplies. It's like, how am I going to maintain all of this? Murray said. Weeks after she filed her application for unemployment insurance, payments started coming in and Murray was able to pay her bills again. But Murray has long-term concerns about what an upcoming recession could mean for her. Just a year and a half ago, in October 2018, Murray and her unionized co-workers spent 28 days striking for higher wages and better health care. At the time, workers at the hotel had not had wage rises. I hate the way the British speak. Had wage raises since before the last recession, and healthcare costs were so expensive that Murray could only afford to cover herself, leaving her 2 children out of her plan. Wow. The workers reached a deal with the hotel and she was able to get her children under her healthcare plan. But Murray is worried about what an economic downturn would mean for her and her coworkers. I just don't want to see us go backwards right now, she said. Trump's repeated claims that he has been the best president for African Americans was repeatedly pegged to falling unemployment numbers, but those numbers only tell a partial story, as work by Rogers and others have shown. Black families are especially vulnerable to economic downturns because they lack the savings that can act as a buffer against unexpected layoffs or lost wages. And during the last recovery, they lost ground against their white peers. The median net worth of Black families is $17,600 compared with $171,000 for white families. A white family is likely to have $10 for every $1 a Black family has. The percentage of Black families that have a net worth at or below $0 is 10 points higher than the percentage of white families in the same financial situation, 19% compared with 9%, respectively. And the Black home ownership rate is the lowest of any racial group in the US and has consistently been about 30% lower than the white home ownership rate over the years, even as the economy was getting stronger. Wealth allows you to respond to that unexpected health emergency, that broken hole in the tire you have to replace. It also allows you to buy a home, put your kids through school, said Danielle Solomon, Vice President of the Race and Ethnicity Program at the Center for American Progress. Having less wealth also has some dire health consequences. Experts agree that being poor has costly effects on a person's health. For adults living in extreme poverty, being poor can cost up to 15 years of life expectancy. It is no surprise then that Black Americans, who are less likely to be insured and more likely to have existing health conditions than their white counterparts, have seen higher death rates due to COVID-19 compared with in any other group in the US. Black Americans made up 25% of deaths from COVID-19 in the US, though they make up a little under 13% of the population. National emergencies, pandemics, epidemics, what they do is they spotlight inequalities, Solomon said. What we see in COVID-19 is no different. It's highlighting racial disparities at every single level that have been with our society for a very long time. So, there's nothing else after this.
Yeah, but you know what? They always point out these articles, which is factually true, but leave out the fact that structurally the U.S. government was behind this thing of keeping Black people from, a lot of them, from getting wealth. The home ownership. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Nicole.
The redlining piece, you hit a man,
Yeah.
you bang it. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah,
Continue.
that's what it's, and it's still Buffalo just got, and Wells Fargo just got sued in what was it, in 2019 for redlining in Buffalo. And they continue to do it. And this is it's a federal government. It's not what this mysterious boogeyman, it's the government of the United States.
Oh, preach, my brother, preach.
And every time you say something, they say, oh no, it's just because you guys just are morally, you just know how to handle money and stuff like that. This is crazy. It is crazy. And then they talk about, this shows the discrimination. We know that. We live discrimination every day. We see it. Walk into a bank, you know the deal. You got to come with all your records and that's something.
They're turning black people have been turned down for loans with 750 credit score.
Yep. I had a high credit score, and the person looked at me and said, "Oh, that's unusual." I said, "So I'm looking through my paperwork." I said, "What the fuck is she talking about?" Then she said, "Your credit score." I said, "Like what?" Because I've never, that's kind of like, you do the right things. You go in there and you say, "This is what I want to do. These are my books. Here's my money. This is what it is. This is what I project." And then they go back to the same old thing to try to look to weed you out. It's just amazing. And that's why when I see these articles, I just shake my head. It goes back to my question: is America worth saving? And every day I think of it. I'm sorry, I'm getting pessimistic and saying no.
Well, it shows you how much they hate you. Shows you how much that they really don't like black people. Shows you where they've really been coming from systematically and institutionally, literally since slavery, and you've come out of it, and we've been a sanctioned. You know, you may as well call the black community Iran. You may as well call it that, 'cause that's
Yeah.
fundamentally.
No, the guy said it best. He said apartheid, because that's what America. Remember, Smut came from South Africa to learn how to do segregation. He
Nazis
came
too.
here. He
Nazis
came
too.
here to learn how to do segregation. He came to America, and this is what people still don't get it. They when I was in South Africa, they said, "Oh, you guys, we got to learn to live together." I said, "But yeah, you don't want to make our mistake. These guys still control everything."
Yep.
And that's the problem. In South Africa, they having the same problem.
The
what,
government,
10% of the population owns like what, 90% of the land and resources?
Exactly.
That's exactly correct, and it's actually 5%. But you're looking at a very ill, part of this country that folks don't want to talk about. Just like this brother just said here, Torture just said here, the government redlined you. We say, and we've said it here on the Brain Trust on many occasions. I've said that. Mike said it. Complex. We've all said this. We've been running this down on this channel for a long time. Been calling that out, and that's what these guys don't want. They want to make you look like you're sick and there's some issues with you. But what's wealth built on? They don't want to tell you what wealth is built on. Your wealth, how people have wealth. Your wealth is built on basically your real estate, your the land that you hold. That's what wealth is built on.
95% of Americans' wealth is in their homes.
Yeah, that's what it is. Most people don't have. Most people, the average, even white family, doesn't have $20,000 cash in the bank. They don't have that. Most families do not. Where is their money tied up in? The money's tied up in their real estate. The Homestead Act. We know that from a fact that the Homestead Act, back from the 1860s, where you were supposed to get your 40 acres and a mule that they gave to the Swedes and Nords and all of them that came over here, and Irish and all the other people that came through here and took that from you, took your 40 acres and a mule. We know that there are over 100 million white people in this country who can directly tie their wealth exactly to that, to those days, which would be equivalent. The 40 acres to a mule is equivalent to $1 million start up for you today. That's what that was equivalent to. So you sat on that land for 5 years, you kept it, it was yours. That's equivalent to $1 million today. $1 million, $1 million bucks. That's the kind of jump start that these guys got, and they want to tell you, "Look at you, you're so far behind, my gosh." Shit, I would be freaking far ahead. So would you if you got $1 million head start on everyone else.
The Homestead Act was a turbo. It was literally a turbo, the fucking supercharger on top of a Hemi.
It was. I'm talking about one of them chain-driven turbos that are sitting on top of the fucking, coming out the roof of your fucking car. When you hit that bitch, it just pulls that sucker down, and next thing you know, you're kicking 700 freaking real wheel horsepower to the wheels. The front end of your car is coming up. It's coming up off the ground.
But see, my point is, after we got past the Homestead Act and all these other things, there was. I know I'm not just calling that, but I'm saying modern because they like to say, "Oh, but since civil rights and all that." I said, "Okay, what happened when the soldiers came back for the GI Bills? They were denied."
No. This is what happened. Once again, brother, you you dead on it. We were talking about to piggyback on your point. There's a town here in New York. It's a suburb now in Long Island. And so I've talked about it before. I'm going to say it one more again. Called Levittown. People may have heard of it, Levittown.
Yeah, that's where they came for the GI Bill. Yeah.
Weren't the builders who built it? Nigga, Jewish.
Let me break it down. Well, you got Jews and Irish. You have all manner of whites in there. But what happened was when they started building these basically, because when whites first came out, they were in the projects. That's where they were, and then they started to build out these neighborhoods outside of that in the late 40s, 50s. So people who had returned home from the war, now who had their GI Bills, some who we could use to go to school. Okay, GI Bills. People talk about UBI, GI Bill. Okay, anyway, they gave them education, and then they gave you a homeowner piece. So those GI Bills at the time were about $5-6 grand. So those houses that they built out in Levittown, which they cleared out all that farmland, and then they made this big, they sectioned out a big suburb, and they wanted to have those houses built for people who had the GI Bill and families that are also coming out of some of these project homes, these project apartments, to move out to the suburbs, and they were going to use the GI Bill to do that. So they had that, and the government said, okay, the whites could move in there, and the whites moved into those areas. Blacks were the exact same GI Bills, same dollars. They said, you can't move in, and we're not going to federally back any of your loans either. We're not going to federally back any of this. The government redlined you from moving into that area, put a little area for you to set up in, didn't back up your loans or anything else like that. And they left you there. So they literally segregated you so you would have one area that would get lesser return than the white area would. And those houses today that are in Levittown, people bought for $4,000 and $5,000, $6,000 back in 40, 48, 49, 50. Those houses now are worth $500,000 and $600,000. Okay, so you want to look at $4,000 to $5,000 to $500,000 to $600,000 today. What level of percentage growth has that been? Astronomical. That's where their wealth was built. That's where their wealth was. That's where their wealth was built. You didn't have that opportunity. Many of you got kicked out, couldn't go into these other areas that you had. You had to stay in these projects that they built for the white people, put you in there. You paid rents, and you didn't get a chance to buy any property, so you didn't have a chance to build wealth. And then when you look at areas like Wyandanch and some of these other areas where they threw a lot of black people in and cornered them off, their houses are probably worth $150,000, maybe $200,000 in New York, Long Island. Which okay, well, you built a little bit of wealth there, but it's far less than what the Levittown people have.
And that's my point to the whole situation. Articles like this do not tell the whole story. They tell the story, but it's not how it is. If you told the story how it is, you would see that despite all the obstacles, we're still here. We're still surviving.
And that's what scares them and makes people insecure.
We pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. Now, why did they do that? Let me explain to you why. When you had Rosewood, when you had Tulsa in these places, when black people got their communities and had their own, and you took your dollar, you passed it around maybe 200 to 300 times before it even left the community, you built a wealthier community than they had. Okay, Tulsa was one of the wealthiest communities that they had in that state during that period.
There's also Wilmington, North Carolina.
You've had so many. There've been many. They've been many. There has been one or two. These are the more famous ones, or infamous ones that I'll bring up that people can all relate to. There were many others that happened where blacks were eliminated and taken out of their communities, houses stolen, schools taken over, everything else like that, to where literally you can look and see where you had black owned these properties. If you go back from the property ownership of this, you saw that blacks had it, and then the lines were cut off. You couldn't read. Well, who else owned it? And next, it became all white.
And, know what they do? They had.
And when you looked at that, these were areas that were ethically cleansed. And they moved. This happened a lot. And you had very successful communities because when blacks own their own communities and they own their own banks, they own their own shops, they didn't tell you Tulsa had their own planes. They had their own track. They had their own plane. They had their own planes and shit. We were getting live. We were getting jiggy with it. And the end of the day, what did they do? They suspended civilization for the white man, turned him into the Mongol horde, and let them come through and rape and destroy your community like the savages that they are. And then they sit back and want to tell you ain't shit. But this is what these guys do. They're fucking animals.
And they do it all the time. And this is what I try to. That's why I try to make that point. I said, this is not a one-off. This is something they continually do. And if are we gonna rebuild this place? I just want to make this point. Are we gonna say we get together and we build something? Um, uh, what is the probability that they're gonna try to do some crazy shit again? Because
that's exactly what they will do. And that's why when I sat down, we had this Jared Taylor sucker lady come over to the Obsidian show one time, telling, well, let me sit down and talk to you black guys and all stuff. Like, you guys don't want an independent black community to work with y'all. We had it. Every time we had it, you guys attacked it. You guys came in with pure savagery. What the fuck are you talking about? You're sitting here telling us this now, and Dylan Roof just came out of a black church and took 9 innocent black people's lives. What the fuck are you savages talking about? I mean, are you kidding me? They hate niggas who understand they understand their history. They know theirs. They know yours. Can't get away with that with me. But these savages talk that. And then they make these articles like we just read, and they tell you how your shit is all fucked up.
Exactly.
It's a systematic game that has put you there. And most of your wealth in this country is built by your home. By the home.
And that's what I was making. That's why it was good that Dollar Will came on today, onto Brian Bernard's Riley show, because he was trying to break it down to people that, how this capitalism works. And I realized when talking to Dollar Will, I'm sorry. I think there is no, there's no hope. I'm sorry. I'm just done. I just think there's no hope. I ran the numbers, pros and cons. You put a spreadsheet together, you put down, and I think that we need a plan B. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, you already. It's not a matter of if it's a matter of when. You have people running up into the Michigan Capitol right now with guns.
And this is what
this is the American system. So they'll do that to a black-owned system
with nooses and all this, and the police are not doing anything to them.
And this, get his job and say, what are you going to do? Shoot COVID? You trying to shoot COVID down now?
No. When they came in there, man, they basically hold the place hostage.
Well, this is what, but see, okay, this is my point, exactly. and this is you got to get this point, because when you read articles like this, it just infuriates me. I'm sorry, it just does, because they lay out these bare facts, which are facts, but it's facts without the other side. And when you look at the stark thing of saying, okay, we live in this country. I'll give you an example. Wilmington, North Carolina. They had elected black officials. They controlled the city. Do you know that they suspended all those rights? And actually, when a mob came in to kick all the black people out, burnt down everything that black people owned.
That's exactly correct.
And the government did nothing. Nothing.
They suspend civilization. They turn them into a horde of savages. They become uncivilized. They come at you.
What do you think? What do you think I'm talking about with Michigan? That's a precursor.
That's what they do. And it's Rosewood and all of it. There's many examples of this. So let's not even think about Lowry, North Carolina, where the Lowry family and such come from, that we have some relations to, where here the blacks and mixed blacks had a war with the Klan and had to literally fought them to a standstill. Many had to leave town because this is what they did. Fought the Klan to a standstill, fought them in their own territory, took them out, and then grabbed the police chief and said, you guys are trying to grab us, you're trying to take over our community, now you jailed our wives, you better let our wives go. Because if you don't, we're gonna kill every white woman in this town. We're gonna kill all of you. Give up our peeps. These guys had to end up leaving. These were Civil War vets after they came out of the Civil War and knew how to fight. And ultimately, the town constable had to relent. They ultimately had to do that, but ultimately these guys had to leave town because of their positions that they took. I mean, this is just ill shit that is going on in this country for just, oh man, it's going on for generations. but they don't talk about this, and they try to make you look like you're sick, you're fucked up, when you have a system, a systemic a game, and an institutional game against you. And they will suspend humanity, they will suspend civilization to destroy you. And this is what they've done on many occasions. So, so when we talk about these articles, you're totally right. This has to be mentioned. We have to look at what's about wealth creation, what brings wealth into this country, and it's home ownership. It's the land you own, and the name of the game for them is it's see to it that you don't get it. Because if you do, and you handle your land right, of course, like many of us do, start building your own communities on your own, you're probably going to do a better job than they are. And that's historically, this has been proven. So that's why they want you poor and your family's broken up, and then raise one agenda over another. So you got a bunch of garrulous, crazy ass fucking black women running around, looking crazy, running around running your community. That's why you have things the way it looks, because this is a plan. This is a plan. That's why you see guys like Pastor Dowell and these other guys stepping off and building their own communities once again, stepping off.
Oh, and Pastor Dow's on their radar. Trust me.
And there's a black community right up here in upstate New York that has a very large Muslim contingency. They did the same thing. And what whites doing, coming in there, trying to poison their water, shut them off, and doing all kind of craziness. This is what they do. They don't want you forming your own shit, because they know what that means. Once we become independent of your ass and we don't need you, fuck y'all. We're gonna do better. Oh no!
I was going to say, even if you're not even trying to form yours, I'm sure everyone on this panel is relatively successful. You can just see that in your day-to-day interaction when you're interacting with this, this black guy who's doing well. You can just see some of these guys, the insecurity in that.
Yeah,
that goes on. I can't tell you the stuff that's going on in my neighborhood, but anyway, because it's me and a few other blacks, and then a couple of Latinos that moved in, and it's created an issue. But anyway, that's just how it is, man. That's just how these guys are. So that you can never fool me on, I'm a good guy, we're doing the right things. You guys are fucking savages. And it bothers me that Negroes sit back here and think that their ice is colder. No, they're more violent. They're a Medusa head. They're a fucking Medusa. But you got to understand what you're dealing with. And a lot of these guys they just don't see it. I understand it's fear, and they want to suck their balls to say, okay, don't hurt me, I'm with you, and they think that they're good that way, and that's just not really what this is all about. But anyway,
And that's all I mean by these articles, because it's I know that the articles are good, is telling a perspective, but sometimes we got to push back against these articles because just blatant lies. And he mentioned that word apartheid, and I said, because that's what it is. We're living in a modern day apartheid system.
Yeah.
And until we realize that this is the system we live in. See, because we've been brainwashed to believe that this is not where we're living. This is an apartheid system. And until black people here realize that, we're gonna still suffer from that.
We're a sanctioned community. I call us Iran. We're Iran, man. We're Iran. We have every sanction against you that you can think of.
No, I think we're more like Palestine. Trust, it's more like Palestine.
Well, they're not dropping as many bombs on us like they're doing in Palestine.
No, but they quarters us off in little areas, and you're only allowed to do certain things. And if you get out that box, assassination will happen to your leaders. It's just like Palestine.
Well, I'd say it's Iran. General comes off of a plane, he walking through. Next thing you know, they bomb him out, and it's all good. Nobody has anything to say. We're doing war crimes on it. So we have war crimes committed in our community on a regular, consistent basis. Yes, we do some of them on ourselves, which is terrible. Yet we are fairly occupied and sanctioned. I mean, there are sanctions against us, and we have to understand that. That's why we have to really invest in ourselves, and that's what bothers me about the whole thing. I'm telling you, right? Most people don't understand this. If we had a very strong black banking system, a lot of this stuff we would avoid.
Right? Didn't you see that?
We'd be getting through a lot of this right now.
Didn't you see the movie where the black dudes had to have a white face to get a banking license and get all that? Yeah, because that's, and it's still like that. you think it's easy to go in and try
Those
to
brothers
get
were
them?
in some vicious times when they were doing this. But
Yeah,
anyway, go ahead.
and do you think you think they don't have hurdles now for us to try to get a banking system? Try to
They
get one. Try to get one in New York City. What the
There
what the
definitely there are definitely hurdles, but you can break through. You can open up. It's just really a question about us. See, the name of the game, the reason why understand the why they want you thinking a certain way is so you don't coalesce your dollars. Every black family doesn't need to have $1 million. You can put small amounts of money together and raise an immense amount of money to help your community out. Immense health. Barack Obama showed you that just simply in his own, presidential campaign when he first ran in 2008. He did get a lot of money from Wall Street, but he had a lot of small little people coming through, donating, and he raised more money than anybody else, and they wanted to change the game after that. And it wasn't all black people, of course, but there were many others. But what I'm saying is, small amounts of money coalesce, put together, can have a huge impact. And we have that. We have that ability. I mean, I'm devastated when I'm sitting here talking to black bankers talking about every $10,000 that you, me, black people put into the banking system. We're not talking about just all dollars, black money that we put it that we go to these rapacious fucking, reptilian savages like fucking Wells Fargo and Chase and these horror shows, and we we give them money, but we give them damn out of 10,000 out of 10 grand that we have, we give them almost every nickel of that, except $4 or $5 that we put in the black bank. I mean, that's something terribly wrong with that. That's something terribly wrong. We can fix that. There's something terribly wrong with our thinking. That's why when I see these black power people and all these black hoteps and all that, they don't talk about this. I know they're full of shit. They're not even talking.
well, come on, Nagon. You know what they are. They still
Of
chasing.
course, I know what they are. I've been
They
seeing
they
these guys.
still chasing the womb. That's what it is. Come on.
Of course, I see who these people are. And I've been seeing it for a long time. But when you hear that stuff here, you just sit back and you just like, oh man, are you kidding me? But that's what's going on. That's why I say so many of us are just lost. The stuff we talk about here, these are some of the most important conversations we should be having in our community, and there are very few people here that want to hear it. They don't want to hear this kind of stuff. They don't want to hear it because it's too significant. They want to sit back and go to sleep and think everything's going to be okay. No, it's not how it's going to be. So, we're going to keep talking about that. But the name of the game is here. We're going to invest in ourselves. The more we do that, the better we'll be.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys being from New York, I'm sure you all see right through that hustle because you all got some real conscious people up there, real pro-black. So.
Yeah, you have some, and like I said, you got real brothers who are building housing for black people. You have brothers here who are in the black banking system and need you to participate. We have brothers here who are running the educational system and producing some of the best of students out here. And these are drops in the bucket. These are small amounts of people that that we have. It's small amounts, but we have to extend on this. We just have to extend. You try to get the word out, people don't want to hear about it. People just, they want to talk about, well, let me show you how, let me show you how, we hook up with this babe, and let me show you this. I mean, just the dumbest, most retarded shit going. And I can't give any of it a passing grade, none of it. And I'm gonna stay with channels like this and just sit down and talk about this stuff all day long, because this is the only thing it's the only thing that's going to make a difference.
Well, sadly, I was going to say, maybe COVID-19 is what will finally bring this stuff to the boiling point.
I hope so.
Well, I'm just telling you, it
Boy,
doesn't.
it's showing.
It shows. It exposes a couple of things that black people, when even from the time Malcolm was trying to tell them, it showed their poor health, poor mental health, poor a lot of family arrangements need to be it shows everything that we were doing wrong in so many horrifying ways. I mean, I just can't tell you. I get off the phone with people and they tell me, yo, I just lost 5 people. I'm like saying, how the hell do you lose 5 people? But that's how it is.
Yep. I was talking to a friend in Atlanta. He's like, yeah, I've lost 3 friends in this whole COVID-19 thing. I'm like, it's crazy.
2 of my good friends, they're all in their 50s, 57, 56 years old. And one of them very wealthy, doing very well. I mean, very overweight as well, didn't take care of his health. That's why I say get your mind right, get your body right, get your money right, get all these things right, because this is going to be very important to you. It all works together. But he didn't have his body right, and and he got the COVID, and it clipped him. It took him out. On the 30th of March, and it was it's like, well, Gary, how are you going? Doesn't make any sense. So and I see the effect that it's hitting us on. And then we could also take a look at why is COVID hitting us in such a terrible way? Because also what underlies all of this was the poor healthcare system. People want to say, well, your healthcare, but yeah, when you start to get 50 and 60 years old and so forth, in your 40s and you should be getting regular checkups. You should be able to go to the doctor. You should have a regular system for you to really help you out in doing that. And a lot of us don't have that. So when you have the Affordable Care Act and all that Obama was putting out there, he was right on the money on this. I mean, this healthcare. He was, at the end of the day, has shown he was dead on the money on this. And still you got the Supreme Court still trying to knock it down. For what? For a system that doesn't even work. And this is what's been killing you. This is what's been taking you out. Nobody wants to talk about this. Because there's a poverty game to it. So a lot of your health and how long you live will determine, what kind of, what your economic situation is like. So to a large extent, and not for everyone, but to a large extent, in the overall, this is what we're dealing with. So we just have to look at all the facts. You brothers hitting right in the head. This is systemic. This is a systemic institutional game that has us where we are. And we have to just see right through this, look at it, and we're gonna have to start to make some very serious moves. Some will not make it with us because they're mentally are just not going to be there. But for those who will have the mindset to work with us, then I think we're going to have to take a different look at it. And for brothers, this is very obvious. Who are your friends? I'm going to ask y'all this right now. I'm going to leave this out. I got another word to say. Who are your friends out here looking out for you? That's my question. Where and who are your friends? That's my question. If anybody can answer that,
I can tell you, one of my friends is the one who hooked me up and said, listen, they're giving money out to do the pandemic engineering projects today. He called me about an hour after it dropped. And I said, what? So I looked at it, looked at the site, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it and put some thoughts in and do. My friends, we all got the same ideas. We're trying to just capitalize on these things.
But these are your immediate friends, but who outside, and they're brothers, but who outside of that are really looking out for you?
But that's the problem.
Ain't nobody looking out for you.
Nobody's looking out because remember, okay, the way the system is set up, when they say the minorities, and they always lump, we're a minority, but the women are another super minority. They can get whatever they want to do, and and then you got the I had to tell these how I say this. I don't want to sound racist, but these Indian and Chinese guys, they said, "Oh, we're interested in getting involved." And I said, I told them, "Nah, this one I'm gonna rock by myself. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna do it because, when you have them involved in these companies, they tend to try to hire only their people and all that, and I'm not gonna allow that to happen, you know." And that's the issue. They get a stake in there. They want to have their votes, and you got an Indian and Chinese involved. Like what happened before, they vote together against you. So I'm sticking close to the fence on this one. I'm not allowing none of them in this time.
Yeah, I was going to say on top of that, the one thing that with all this that's going on, it's just seeing the Democratic primary and seeing Bernie lose, and I'm just like, you know, this is literally what this guy was talking about, ran on all the problems he's talking about. You know, people let Biden get in there and win and scare them with with socialism talk. And I'm just like, look at all the money they just spent.
Well, look at the financial, you know, you have Wall Street backing up Biden, the same people that are backing up Biden, backing up Trump. They're all eating out of the same trough. That's what you're dealing with. They're all eating out of the same game. You think there's a difference? No, man. The name of the game for us is to utilize our numbers, utilize our numbers to pressure either system to get what we want to basically, you know, look after our interests.
Okay, Nago, what happens if nothing happens? Because that's what's been going on. And
We haven't pushed anything. We haven't pushed shit. But one thing we do know: once you sit down and your numbers get felt, shit moves. That's what we know.
Well, the thing is, yeah,
we know that. We know that once you start putting numbers together and you start putting money and numbers together, you know, collectively, and you start moving in on elections and you start determining who's in and who's out. This is how the game is played. We did not play in the last election. 2 million of us didn't come to polls, and you got this orangutan monkey sitting up in here talking shit. All right.
That was because the system, we saw the system as it was back then.
Well, we decided not to participate, and what happened is, oh, hey, oh, so now folks are sitting there saying, okay, well, we're gonna have to participate. Yeah, you're damn right you're gonna have to participate. All right, and that's how you'll get what you want, because this is an interest-based game. Every group, ethnic group in this game plays it, and election day is payday for a lot of these people. You understand?
Well,
now they're getting their needs met. You're not.
Well, okay. I can counter that, because when we started asking for what we wanted in this election, wait, I'm just making a point. There was certain black, call themselves representative, telling us to shut up and vote. We have no opinion.
Well, who are they paid by?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's my point.
And who are putting them up? Most of these black people are not even coming to these people with anything. You got to come to everybody. Any black representative that you have, this is to crush your counter. Any black that comes to the table and is not responsible, and ultimately is not responsible to his community, it's not your friend. Yep. You have to, every black person that comes to you, who comes to your vote, they've got to put something on they've got to give you what you've put on the table to them. When's the last time you've seen a black group of people really sit down and talk about common interests and what they really want and say, this is what's going to be on our political agenda, this is what we want, and let's put this on the table, like the gays did when they sat down and said, okay, Obama, we're going to sit down, we're going to support you. Okay, we're going to support you because some of these other guys are starting to bug out. We're going to support you, but we want gay marriage. We want this and we want that. We want that on the table, and we want to get your promise for where Obama was not for that in his first term. But when they came to him and he realized he had to get as many votes as he could, what did they say? Okay, people, you put your money and your bodies up, because you got a lot of people coming to the polls. I'm going to support what you have to get. And by God, by the time he got elected and when they got in there, he delivered for them. He delivered for them specifically. This is how you got to come to people. This is how the game is played. Most of us don't seem to understand that. I don't see why that is. It sits right in front of you. It sits right in the middle of your face, and most people can't. They just can't see it. I don't understand it.
Well, do you think?
God, I don't understand.
Well, now this time around, I mean, black folks, for better or for worse, saved Joe Biden's campaign. Let's see what we get in all this if he gets elected.
But I haven't seen anybody say, "Oh, I said, okay, Joey B. I know you, Obama's man, and all that. This is what we want. We want affordable education for our community right now. We want better opportunities at affordable housing, and we want to get a better opportunity to buy homes at very affordable prices. And we want you guys to come in with a secondary Homestead Act for us. That's what we want. Okay. What we also want is we want to make sure that our healthcare program is basically, for us, fundamentally nationalized. We want that. Okay. We want that fundamentally nationalized. Okay. We can come up with about 10 or 15 different things that we want. Okay. We want not only express set asides, but we want the SBA and so forth to work specifically for our community, and we want to guarantee that every community that we have, that we get involved in, or any business that we get involved in, there's a guaranteed 10% for us in there. Guaranteed 10%. We want this. Okay, we want to be guaranteed these things. We can sit down and make all these demands. All right, are we going to get them all? No, but are we going to get some that can advance us? Yes. And we should be putting these kind of demands on the table. We can sit down and talk about all kind of demands that we want. But where is this national Black agenda?
The only demand that I have heard is that we have a Black woman VP or a Black woman on the Supreme Court. That is literally the only thing I have heard coming.
And you heard that from the same people that I was talking about that ain't doing nothing for you.
A fucking sucker. A fucking sucker. Okay, what good is some Black women going to be sitting on some spot for you anywhere? Half of the time they ain't even going to look out for you. All right, so what's that? No, what are we going to put on the table? Because we're going to raise a certain amount of money, and we're going to come out to vote, and we may be the difference between you getting in or not. Okay, we're that difference. We're that swing vote. That's where we are in this game. What are you going to do for us? A lot of power. Okay, that determines whether people get in or they don't get in. Well, we got to deliver. And if you don't deliver, then we will come and let your ass drop like a stone the next time around. And that's how it is. It's a power game you got to play. Every ethnicity plays it. We don't. They take your vote for granted. They take everything you have for granted. Oh, okay, the Negroes are us. Negroes are they're gonna come here. We're gonna give them. Ain't gonna give them shit, but they're gonna vote for us anyway. Fuck that. What are you giving for us? And that's the game we got to play. Zero-sum game. Let's throw broken down for you in detail. So this is where we got to be. You're in the box, you're out. That's how this thing is played. That's the game we got to start playing, and we can do it. We've done it before. We can do it again.
Let's go to Joe. He has been.
Okay, Joe, go ahead,
I don't
man.
want to cut off the go and go.
The
go get going. I don't want to, be rude or anything like that. A lot of times I wanted to chime in, but I know you talked about Biden, but Biden's the one that kind of pushed Obama's hand to get on that gay train. You know what I'm saying? I mean, pardon me, that alphabet train. He didn't want to go there, But
the
Biden
numbers
was the
came
one
up,
else.
brother. They looked at the numbers, man. They saw the numbers. And the
No,
gays
I know,
came in there.
I know that he was trying to be
said,
quiet
hey,
on
we
it.
got a powerful vote. We can help you.
Biden didn't push him. A good portion of Obama's funding in his campaign came from them.
And the Tea Party happened.
You had opposition. Yeah. He had to win. So what I'm saying is the gays weren't wrong to do what they did. They had their interest.
They weren't.
They did what they had to do. What I'm saying is they're playing that game. That's what we have to do.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, like you said, right? Like every politician tries to walk that middle line where they're loved by everyone. And that last election, the Tea Party came in hard, went far right, and the Democrats with that far left was really like, really coming at like, yo, we really want to know where you stand. And Biden actually put him in a corner where he was like, hey, I'm all for this, alphabet stuff, and then he was like, okay, he's like, he had no choice. And it's like most presidents do. Most presidents like a lot of things, but they're like, yo, I like what you're doing, but now you got to make me do it. And that's the thing with us, right? Like, just because like you think the person will say that, yeah, they're for this, when they get elected, now we got to make them do it. And we usually never make them do it by like with the outcries and like just the constant, like nagging the situation, and that's how most people get what they want. Of course, they have to vote for the person as well.
I mean, you hit it right in the head. I mean, we saw it in the '60s, right? We saw it in the Johnson administration. Okay, Kennedy got his wig split right there on TV. Then Johnson came in. Brothers were like, listen, this is revolutionary time. We want equal rights. All right, we want equal voting rights. All right, we want to deal with some of this poverty that we have in our rural areas more so than anything else. We want equal opportunities for jobs and so forth. In the north, in the cities, we want this, man. We got to have this. We got to have this, Johnson. And you got to play with us on this. The brothers came in. you know, Malcolm and the Big Six and everybody else like that. They came rolling through. Not Malcolm, excuse me, Martin. The Big Six and all of them came through. Malcolm and were playing another kind of role on the side, but the major, you know, civil rights people really came through. Jesse was there as well. I have to give him credit for that time, even though he became, you know, something quite a bit different as time went on. But those guys were right on the money, and brothers got what they asked for. We got what we wanted. We got, to a large extent, it wasn't finished, it wasn't utilized properly, as Adam Clayton Powell said, so forth. But you had your black politicians and your black people literally linked up, moved up, and started moving strong. And after white people saw that, they were like, "Oh, this shit is serious. These guys really arm up and Voltron up. This is a problem. They can change America." So they've been trying to weep away and weed away at that since that time. You know, just cut you back to the fat. It's been a steady move towards that since those times. But we saw how effective that could be. So we could do the same thing now. And we're not, you know, and we're not making demands. And our community has gotten poorer. You know, it's gotten more separated. The family structure has broken down. You got all kind of crap going on. You had drugs, you know, introduced into your community, all kind of madness. All the stuff was systematically, you know, bought in, and we've survived that. So now we're sitting back here saying we've gotten through this. So we should know the deal now. And why are we not politically organizing and putting our interests on the table with a black national agenda and really push that forward? Is something that I don't understand. You know. I mean, I do understand it. I mean, I do, but I'm just saying here for the public, it doesn't make sense. We should be much more unified in this, and we don't have to love each other. We don't have to be monolithic in thought. You know, we have to just look at our interests and what do we consider the most important interests that we have that are germane to us: jobs, healthcare, okay, housing. These are very key issues for us. This is what's got us down in the COVID. So, I mean, you know, we should have a national agenda. We should be voting on this as a block, to come in and block vote and pressure these people. Okay, every other group does it. The gays, the alphabet gays, they showed you. If anything, they showed you what time it was on that. You know, were they wrong? People may not agree with them. No, man. You know, if they had the power to do it, then they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. We need to be doing the same thing. And, you know, this is politics 101. And I think it's time for us to stop talking about this shit and just start doing it. And we're not properly organizing, looking at this manosphere, if you will, as a sounding board with a lot of people in here. What are we up in here talking about? The dumbest shit known to fucking man. But yet, you know, we'll look at that. So go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, we're not going to go into the manosphere thing because that will take us. So
I've left it. I've left it on. I'm off.
Okay. And the thing that I wanted to say is about the COVID was interesting. The highest new cases of COVID, it's in the Midwest and in the South, in particular age. And there's been reports that they've been hiding the actual numbers of deaths that's really been occurring in these things like Nebraska and Iowa and places like that. They're not really telling even their own people how many people are just getting passing away from this thing. And you know, they like I saw one. They said in Texas they only had 9 deaths. I'm sorry, but I call that bullshit. You know, it's and this is the thing I'm trying to say. These articles and all this, they tend to try to put us to face of everything that's going wrong. And I'm sorry, that is you know, it's a lot of bull.
They're the problem, but they're the ones that are utilized, that are putting you up as the face. They got to have a bogeyman. We're the bogeyman because they can write off a lot of crap on us and keep it moving. They easily are able to do that. It's time for us to change the narrative. They shape us. We need to be shaping them.
Nagone, you heard about the nursing home? They found 8 bodies in them. There was not one black person in there.
You got people dying in their homes here in the city, New York City, and they're not being counted. You know how many bodies you got sitting in people's houses right now? They've been sitting there for 3 and 4 days. Do you know what that's all about right in the city? Right?
They just found a U-Haul truck in New York with 100 bodies in it. A U-Haul truck.
Oh, Mike, you don't know what's going on. They got tractor trailers on the side of roads,
I saw that.
refrigerated with bodies, just bodies in there.
This shit is the illest. That's why I
And
say
do you know that they have an open call for mortuary assistance, willing to pay you $50 an hour to help move bodies?
people are scared to death of that because these are diseased people.
Yeah.
You're moving what they consider radioactive material, man. Damn, may as well be that. But that's what you're dealing with, and black people at the center of this. That's why I talk about the Medusa's head, man. I don't know if you guys have seen the Medusa. You guys should pull that shit up and see what that shit is. That shit's all about.
You look at her, turn to stone, but
but it's a horrific visage. It's horrific.
Oh,
when you look in the face of it, it's horrifying and it's evil. And that's a lot of what's going on. I don't want to keep harping on that, but this is a big piece of what we're dealing with. And I'm exceedingly disturbed, and we're not talking about this stuff. We're over here talking about stupid ass hoes and dumb ass shit. These niggas are retarded. I'm like, what do you guys eat? You ate too many lead chips when you were small or something? What is it, lead poison in the brain or something? The fuck is this?
Yeah, we're gonna end it right now.
I'm done.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you all for joining.
Thanks, Mike.
Hit the like button as you exit, and share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description, the video for you to reference.